I already know the cleanup bureau is investigating me. After listening to the moderator's reminder, the girl wearing the white owl mask nodded slightly, then chuckled lightly and said, "More surprising than them sending people to investigate me is the fact that they only sent people now. It seems that, although the cleanup bureau has many strong individuals, their efficiency is frighteningly low. Don't be careless." After the girl codenamed Xue Xiao finished speaking, the person in the main seat frowned and said, "Don't forget how the Ophiuchus Sub-Bureau and the East Carlawin Kingdom disappeared. Although the cleanup bureau has deteriorated considerably over the past few hundred years, its foundation is still strong enough. If you truly push them to the brink, no one knows what kind of things those people might pull out. Moreover, according to the information provided by Little Dog, the investigation targeting Kralik Kingdom might be a joint mission carried out by 2 Zodiac branch offices, which means, in the worst-case scenario, you might even face 2 pseudo-pillar god-level humans simultaneously. Thanks for the reminder. I'll try to be more cautious." The girl with the white owl mask smiled slightly upon hearing this and said, "However, before you gathered us, I had already roughly guessed that someone from the cleanup bureau might be coming to investigate me. The Kralik Kingdom, under my control, is almost completely sealed off to the outside, and the channels are very limited, making the number of outsiders extremely low. So if there are any strange visitors, they are still easy to spot. In addition, although these guests from the Kingdom of Orlison refused to use the identity recognition cards I provided and instead used a method I didn't understand to secretly move between various blocks, successfully avoiding my surveillance, they appeared in places they shouldn't be without travel records frequently enough to essentially shout at me directly, indicating they have issues. The Kingdom of Orlison?" Hearing this, a member of the Slaughter King Association wearing a yellow bull mask beside Xue Xiao couldn't help but slightly change expression and suddenly spoke up. "That should be people from the Scorpio branch. Although most of my followers in the Kingdom of Orlison have gone dormant and cannot frequently transmit messages, they can still conduct some basic surveillance activities. Many high-level members of the Scorpio branch, including the branch chief puppeteer Edward, level 1 cleaner Threadman Algae, and second-level cleaner Smooth Path Mona, among a total of 5 cleaners, have not appeared recently for cleaning activities. And the method Xue Xiao described, which allows people to traverse different blocks of the Kralik Kingdom without the use of identity recognition cards, should be the exclusive abnormal object of Smooth Path. The people who infiltrated Kralik Kingdom are probably them. Indeed, now that we know who the opponent is, it becomes much easier." After the yellow bull mask finished speaking, the person in the main seat nodded slightly in satisfaction and said, "Relay the information regarding the Scorpio branch to Xue Xiao privately later, so she can be prepared. As for the others, what can you say? Is there anyone in charge of surveillance areas where high-level cleaners are showing any unusual movements?" After the person in the main seat finished speaking, the members of the Slaughter King Association around the long table pondered for a moment, then shook their heads one after another, either admitting they didn't know or indicating no abnormalities. "That's a bit strange then." Looking at the Slaughter King Association members who offered no feedback, the person in the main seat couldn't help but frown. According to the information provided by Little Dog, the investigation targeting Kralik Kingdom should be a joint operation by 2 Zodiac branch offices. So why is it that only the cleaners from the Scorpio branch are showing unusual movement? Well, I do have a discovery. At this moment, a Slaughter King Association member wearing a Dongya mask hesitantly spoke. However, it's not a high-level cleaner, but a level 3 cleaner. Leon Lane took on a diplomatic mission and went to the Kralik Kingdom as a prince. He's probably already there by now. Leon Lane, huh? Upon hearing this somewhat familiar name, a group of Slaughter King Association members couldn't help but fall into a brief silence. The glutton god Leon, the cleanup bureau's hyena, the humanoid glutton demon. The average lifespan among Slaughter King Association members is exceedingly long, and although they've encountered many crazed cleaners throughout their long lives, not many are as crazed as he is. Especially after learning from the moose that this person, seemingly merely out of simple hunger, decided to viciously kill and eat the guardian hound of death, forming a deadly enmity with the entire realm of the dead. in most Slaughter King Association members' minds, Leon's name became synonymous with madness. He is special. After a brief contemplation, the person in the main seat made a decision and said, although he's been with the cleanup bureau for a short time, this person cannot be viewed as an ordinary level 3 cleaner. He should be regarded as a level 2. No, better yet, directly treated as a level 1 cleaner and a top-notch elite who can take over a non-Zodiac branch office chief role. From now on, any news about him should be raised 3 levels in terms of importance. If it is discovered that he is close to any of the 12 royal families and is in close contact, the mask can be activated to call for an emergency meeting. Although the relationship between the Scorpio branch and the Virgo branch is extremely poor, considering that he once fought alongside puppeteer Edward, the possibility of the Virgo branch getting involved is not low. Xue Xiao. Be prepared for an encounter with both puppeteer and Scarlet Hair Lady at the same time. Understood. At this point, Xue Xiao, who had been acting rather relaxed, slightly furrowed her brows with a touch of seriousness, then asked, so what do you think I should do to respond? Should I keep delaying by blocking information, pretending the royal family is not under control? Or should I find a way to deal with the puppeteer and that Leon, the level 3 cleaner, before the Scarlet Hair Lady arrives? Focus on delaying as much as possible for now. After some thought, the person in the main seat suggested, we are all blocked outside the Watcher's Palace and cannot provide direct support to you, while Scarlet Hair Lady is the second most dangerous among all the branch chiefs and surpasses all in terms of destructive power, coupled with the unpredictable and complex abilities of the puppeteer. Going head-to-head is not a good choice. Currently, the Cleanup Bureau should have some guesses about the situation in Kralik Kingdom, but they have not fully confirmed it. That's why they're only sending people to investigate. Before the director of Taurus ascends to the palace, they probably won't have any room to deal with you. And considering the preparations on Aquarius's side, we're actually also waiting for the director of Taurus to ascend to the palace, so for now, the best result is to maintain the current situation, keeping the Cleanup Bureau from confirming the situation in Kralik Kingdom. With the Cleanup Bureau's current indecisive approach, unless they are pushed to the absolute edge, they are most likely to temporarily compromise, not breaking the seemingly stable situation for the time being, and only act after the director of Taurus ascends. This will temporarily resolve your troubles. All right. The girl with the white owl mask nodded slightly, indicating her agreement with this solution. However, after some contemplation, she asked again, but what if they actually discover something? Then act directly. The person in the main seat glanced at her upon hearing this and coldly said without hesitation, the worst thing to do when taking action is hesitating. Maintain the status quo if possible, but if it becomes apparent that you cannot maintain it, do not harbor any wishful thinking. Whether it's the puppeteer or the glutton god, if anyone discovers you, kill them without hesitation. Honorable Prince, I am the Foreign Minister of Kralik Kingdom. You may call me Edison. While the Slaughter King Association decisively set the tone and opted to eliminate anyone who found the problem, Leon had already followed the guidance of the third prince to the conference hall in Administrative Zone 3. Upon seeing Leon enter, a neatly dressed middle-aged man with sharp eyes and a competent demeanor facing the oval meeting table, first nodded politely to him, then gestured toward the empty seat opposite him with a welcoming gesture. Please have a seat. Next, matters concerning the hijacking of our Skyclipper in your country, the burning of the boarding tower rented to your nation, and the loss of vital cargo will be discussed and resolved between me and you. Additionally, other members of your diplomatic mission do not have the privilege of attending the discussion. Please follow Prince Andrei's attendants to the lounge at the corner and wait. Without any pleasantries or courtesy, not even a hint of conversation, everything had been assertively arranged. The foreign minister quietly opened the booklet in front of him and, with a stern face, said, Honorable Prince, the first topic we must discuss is your country's security issues. In critical locations around the royal capital, there are organized armed rebels who can easily bypass your country's sentinel posts and attack facilities belonging to us. Please provide a reasonable explanation to me and Kralik Kingdom as to why such an absurd situation has occurred. Explain what? Tell you how I borrowed the uniform and credentials from Isha, then led the rebels to attack the boarding tower and burn the Sky Clipper? Observing the foreign minister who eagerly commenced his offensive before Leon even sat, Leon's lip twitched slightly, feeling as though he had met a certain Prince Freckles. His right hand itched slightly instinctively. Although he had heard prior to his arrival about Kralik Kingdom's assertive foreign attitudes due to their strong technological prowess and national strength, leading to often aggressive and domineering conduct. However, having barely spent 2 hours since disembarking the Sky Clipper, enduring 3 sequential affronts left Leon somewhat displeased. Particularly the foreign minister with a stern iron face. He had neither uttered harsh words nor made provocative statements, yet his manner conveyed an unmistakable sense of refusal. Although Leon had never considered face as important, representing the face of the kingdom of Lutung as an emissary, being so casually dismissed was undeniably challenging. "Honorable Prince?" Seeing no response after a while, the foreign minister raised his head, observing Leon neither sitting nor speaking, but merely squinting his eyes while gazing intensely at him. His brow furrowing into a Chon character, he reluctantly urged, "Later, I have to receive the ambassador of Kingdom of Orlison in this conference room, so please cooperate and don't waste my time." "Ah, Veronica, you really need to put forth some effort." Hearing the middle-aged man's nearly scolding reminder, and seeing the undisguised displeasure on his face, Leon slightly shook his head. Intercountry relations are far more wild than interpersonal relationships and more adhere to the law of the jungle, where only when one's fist is hard enough can one's backbone be straight. Currently, aside from a considerable population, energy industry, and industrial base being decent, other aspects of the kingdom are quite neglected, resulting in them barely considering the kingdom as significant, along with Leon himself being regarded dismissively. "The matter of the boarding tower is not my responsibility." As the serious middle-aged man's brow furrowed tighter, Leon pulled out a chair and sat down, then calm and collected, responded with the pre-prepared statement. "Our mission comprises 2 groups. The group responsible for handling this matter is the other group of the mission. You can speak with the other ambassador when they arrive. I'm here to buy technology." Entirely unexpected by such a response, the foreign minister of Kralik Kingdom instinctively froze, then glanced down at the agenda booklet in his hand, looked up and frowned. "I did not receive a similar notification, nor is there such an arrangement in the agenda booklet." Then added, "Before boarding the Sky Clipper, Leon did not wish to stir up trouble, preventing the kingdom from facing sanctions from the Kralik Kingdom, so he likely engaged in evasive conversation. Having experienced an absurd hijacking and listened to the plights of the robber siblings, learning about the situation in several floating crystal mines, he was prepared for intense agitation and did not need to suppress his feelings. "Give it here." Amidst the foreign minister's bewildered expression, Leon stood up and seized the agenda booklet from his hand, then used the pen on the table to make a couple of marks, casually rewrote a few lines in the original format, then tossed the agenda booklet back. "I added the procurement matter for you. I plan to acquire technology for long-distance communication. If you have any questions, ask quickly. Later, I'd like to take a stroll outside. Don't waste my time." You. Facing the prince, who cannot be described as impolite but certainly disregardful, the serious middle-aged man turned ashen with anger and, after stammering twice, slammed the table hard. "Absurd. Rude. Do you know what you're doing? This action is blatant provocation. You will. It was you who provoked first." Having endured silently along the journey, Leon, holding in fury, crossed his arms and sneered while questioning. "Do you realize that I've tolerated you for a long time? From the moment I disembarked the Sky Clipper, you started causing trouble. Even an identification card takes forever to prepare, and now there's arrangement after arrangement with you showing me attitude. I know Kralik Kingdom is formidable, but do you truly assume others have no temper?" You. Watching as Leon kicked his chair away and stood up, with malicious intent fixed toward him, the foreign minister of Kralik Kingdom felt as though Leon genuinely had the intention to fight, and his momentum wavered as he desperately argued. "This is a meeting between countries. It's not a street brawl. Your conduct is unprofessional. You were the ones unprofessional first." Leon slammed his hand on the table and furiously asked. Aside from a useless prince with no inheritance rights, the entire reception process was skipped. Is this professional? You couldn't even prepare a few identification cards. Wasting my time. This is how you define professionalism? And you are proficient in posturing, yet you have no clue why I'm here nor what you should discuss with me as the foreign minister. Is this your professional standard? Is it really our fault? Not only were the identification cards unprepared, but we also misunderstood their purpose? Seeing Leon's furious demeanor, having been intimidated by him, the foreign minister involuntarily shrank his neck, then forced himself to argue. What you mentioned were merely reception and agenda arrangement issues, which can be discussed later, but they cannot justify your rude behavior. I am the foreign minister of Kralik Kingdom. You must afford me basic respect. At least, refrain from using foul language. I'm not using foul language. It's just a slip of the tongue. Seeing the bewildered look on the face of his foreign minister, Leon, who had spoken too hastily, coughed deliberately, then indignantly declared again. In any case, your Kralik Kingdom is simply too much. You've shown a complete lack of basic respect for a prince. And I even have reason to suspect now that you have no sincere intention to communicate with us. No, how do you have the nerve to say that? Having sat in the position of foreign minister for almost 10 years, this was the first time the stern middle-aged man encountered such an absurd envoy. As he came back to his senses, he couldn't help but feel a surge of anger, and he shouted furiously, "What exactly do you want to do? I already told you I want to buy something, preferably the technology as well." Pointing to the agenda book in the foreign minister's hands, Leon said nonchalantly, "You mentioned before that our area has poor security, with rebels constantly on the move. Recently, they even attacked the royal palace. It's simply outrageous. To deal with these arrogant rebels, I plan to purchase some long-distance communication equipment. Once their whereabouts are discovered, we can immediately encircle them. In addition, I'm planning to equip it at important places like the boarding tower, to prevent being attacked and unable to provide support in time." So, he really did come to buy things? Seeing Leon speak so matter-of-factly, the foreign minister hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly suppressed the anger in his heart and spoke patiently. "Then you'll have to wait a bit. I haven't received a procurement request here, nor am I responsible for the transfer of technology, so regarding this thing you want, I need to ask the person in charge to find out how many similar technologies there are and which ones can be transferred." TSK. The efficiency is really poor. After adding a disdainful remark, which made the foreign minister's eyelid twitch uncontrollably, Leon waved impatiently and said, "I agree. Go and ask then. I'll wait for you here. Remember to make it quick and don't let me wait too long." Do you have any other questions? No questions, but if you can actually purchase what you want, I'll kneel down and knock my head in gratitude. Glaring at Leon angrily and making a vow silently in his heart, the foreign minister snorted with annoyance, not bothering to argue with this fool anymore. He grabbed his agenda book and stormed off, slamming the door heavily as he left. His anger was evident. Safe finally got him to leave. As the sound of the disgruntled foreign minister's footsteps faded, Leon, who had just been looking impatient, smiled slightly. He then stood up, walked to the side behind the foreign minister's chair, and reached out his right hand toward the file cabinet filled with various odds and ends, politely greeting. "I am third-level cleaner Leon Lane, representing the Virgin branch in this investigation task. I humbly ask for guidance from the two seniors." Faced with Leon's polite greeting, the foreign minister's file cabinet couldn't help but tremble slightly, or rather, the green plant placed on top trembled oddly. Immediately after, at the top of this pot of green plant, a vermilion onion-shaped bulb slightly opened, revealing two amazed male faces. One male head, the size of a grain of rice, struggled to emerge from the bulb, looking at Leon in shock and said, "How did you know I was here? Did the director tell you about my ability in advance?" Director Edward didn't mention these things. After scrutinizing this peculiar green plant, Leon, with eyes full of surprise, gently shook its taro leaf-like leaves as a handshake gesture. He then smiled and replied, "But according to the agreement between him and our director, we don't need to set a meeting place for this task in advance. After I arrive in Kralik Kingdom, 2 seniors will take the initiative to contact me. And in the absence of a prior agreement, as an envoy sent by the kingdom, there are only 3 places I would definitely appear, namely the air harbor where the Skyclipper landed, the meeting hall of the foreign minister, and the accommodation arranged for me by the Kralik Kingdom. However, the air harbor is overcrowded, and its terrain is very open, which is not suitable for secret contacts. Without contacting me, it is also difficult to determine where exactly the Kralik Kingdom has arranged for me to stay, so only the foreign minister's meeting hall is most appropriate." "I see." After listening to Leon's explanation, the 2 little flower men in the green plant involuntarily exchanged a glance, with a hint of surprise evident in their expressions. Although they had heard from the director before that this 3rd-level cleaner's capabilities were astonishingly strong, they didn't expect that even before official contact, he had already displayed his skills by digging them out in advance. Not to mention the talent in dealing with abnormalities, but at least his mind is quite sharp. "It seems my debut went quite well." After observing the expressions of the 2 little flower men, Leon confirmed that his display of intelligence had indeed achieved the desired effect, and he couldn't help but let out a slight sigh of relief in his heart. According to the director, the Scorpio branch had dispatched elite members this time. Besides Director Edward personally leading the team, they also brought an elite level 1 cleaner, on par with Senior Emma, who could step up as a sub-branch director anytime, along with 3 seasoned 2nd-level cleaners. Although Leon's dossier was quite dazzling, its confidentiality level was a bit too high. So for these veteran cleaners, he was still a newcomer with only 3 months of service. To ensure they valued his opinion, it was very necessary to appropriately show some strength and flex some muscle. 2 seniors. After establishing initial contact with the Scorpio branch and achieving the predetermined goal of demonstrating strength, Leon politely asked, "I've already dismissed the foreign minister, and our time is relatively ample. So, could you please tell me if you've made any findings in these few days since you arrived?" "We do have some results." Upon being discovered by this so-called dangerous and crazy newcomer, the 2 cleaners from the Scorpio branch were somewhat apprehensive, but seeing Leon's polite demeanor and hearing his courteous inquiry, they relaxed a bit and then responded, "Among the cleaners who came with us, there's someone named Mona. She can move freely within this city. In the past 2 days, she took the director and Alger to tour the original location of the Gemini branch and check the situation there." "The original location of the Gemini branch?" Hearing this, Leon couldn't help but blink and then proactively asked, "How is the situation? Are the cleaners and abnormal objects from the Gemini branch still there?" "A lot of the stored abnormal objects are gone, but the people are basically still there." The 2 little flower men sighed in response, and the slightly younger-looking middle-aged man spoke with a puzzled look. Mona checked the archive room of the Gemini branch and discovered that there were even 6 or 7 mission records in recent times. Apart from the absence of a sub-branch director and the lack of a few high-level cleaners, the entire Gemini branch is actually still operating normally. "Is the Gemini Bureau still operating normally?" Upon hearing the middle-aged flower man's words, Leon couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. Leon and Nicole had imagined many outcomes for the Gemini Bureau, such as partial escape, complete capture, or even total annihilation, but they never considered that the Gemini Bureau could still operate normally. After all, Adify 01 had directly attacked the Gemini Bureau and seemingly taken control of the Kralik Kingdom's royal family, almost openly opposing the Cleanup Bureau. Why keep those cleaners around? Are the people at the Gemini Bureau being controlled? After pondering for a while, Leon could only come up with this one possibility and tentatively asked, "For example, did they have something strange implanted in their brains? Or were they influenced by some abnormal object? Or maybe the relatives they care about are residents of the Kralik Kingdom and were directly captured? I'm not sure." The 2 flower men shook their heads in unison, and then the older flower man spoke. "Director Edward thought about capturing someone from the Gemini Bureau for questioning, but none of us are good at that, nor do we have the ability to erase memories afterward. Doing so would definitely alert the other side. Considering that the situation with the royal family is still unclear, Director Edward temporarily abandoned this plan and decided to first determine the royal family's situation and the location of Atify-01's main body. Do you have any results? Have you determined the situation with the royal family? Not yet. The two flower men exchanged a helpless glance and said, "The geography of the Kralik Kingdom is too complicated, with over 800 districts that frequently change. Mona's ability consumes a lot, and the director and the team spent several days but only investigated about 30 districts. And the worst part is, the Kralik Kingdom will hold a celebration in a few days, at which time most of the districts will rearrange and reposition. The districts we've investigated will likely be all for nothing once they move." So you basically did a pointless investigation? Leon shook his head in extreme frustration, then carefully inquired about the progress made by the Scorpio director and frowned. "Senior, with Director Edward's current method, it's taking too long, and whether it'll succeed largely depends on luck. If unlucky, you might keep being stalled indefinitely." Director Edward has mentioned similar concerns. The middle-aged flower man nodded and said helplessly, "However, after discussing, we truly couldn't come up with a better approach. Considering the royal family members of the Kralik Kingdom may already be controlled by Atify-01, we opted for a more gradual approach to avoid provoking it and risking the royal family getting hurt. Come on, with an investigation relying solely on luck, you'll be probing until the Watcher's Palace is in ruins if you want to find anything." "Seniors, my words might sound harsh." In response to the slightly tense expressions of the two flower men, Leon frowned and said, "But your method definitely won't work. I even suspect the other side has already noticed you and is stalling for time. So, I hope you can help me contact Director Edward so I can discuss and see if we can try my method first." "Well, that could work." After exchanging a look, the middle-aged flower man propped himself up on the petals on both sides, climbed out of the green plant onion-sized bulb, dug a small hole in the flower pot, and placed a tiny seed inside. He then covered the soil back and took out a miniature watering can from somewhere, sprinkling some water over the seed. Puff! With a barely audible sound, a plant with short, soft hairs on its stems sprouted, gently poking through the soil. In Leon's surprised gaze, it coiled around the edge of the flower pot, unfurling a bud toward him. "Is this a morning glory?" Watching the plant, which completed its entire growth and sprouted numerous pink, red, and purple trumpet-shaped flowers in less than 2 seconds, Leon blinked in amazement. Then, at the middle-aged flower man's gesture, he bent down and tentatively spoke. "Sir Edward." After a delay of several seconds, the closest morning glory to Leon actually emitted the surprised voice of the Scorpio director. "Leon. Wow, not only can they shrink and hide in a flower, but they can also use a morning glory as a speaker. This is quite an interesting ability." Taken aback, Leon glanced at the middle-aged flower man in his leafy attire and responded, "It's me. Of course I know it's you." The Scorpio director's voice, sounding a bit puzzled, came from the other side of the morning glory. "But aren't you supposed to be just off the Sky Clipper, dealing with the foreign minister? Why suddenly contact me?" "I managed to send the foreign minister away, and after exchanging with," glancing at the two flower men, Leon continued, "After exchanging with the seniors, I sensed something was off, so I wanted to discuss whether we could change our investigation method." "Want to change the investigation method?" After listening to Leon, the Scorpio director across the morning glory went silent for a few seconds before speaking. "Give me a reason." "The reason is, we might have already been exposed." Recalling the common knowledge about the Kralik Kingdom learned from the female journalist, Leon frowned slightly and said, "The seniors just told me that the investigation was abnormally slow due to frequent district changes in the Kralik Kingdom. However, while it's true these districts move frequently, it shouldn't be this excessive." "Explain in detail." "In detail, among the 6 types of districts in the Kralik Kingdom, the areas for living, residential, administrative, and research have relatively stable personnel flow, so there's usually little need for them to move. Only the production and military areas frequently change positions due to significant raw material and goods movement, requiring frequent realignment with areas like the spaceport. Other than the production and military areas, the other districts shouldn't move frequently. After listening to Leon, the Scorpio director on the other side of the Morning Glory briefly recalled the condition of the investigated districts over the past few days, his brows instantly furrowing. Districts that usually don't move were suddenly shifting positions frequently, which could only mean one thing: to slow down their investigation process. The initially covert investigation was very likely already being observed. I understand your point. Judging that their actions were likely exposed based on Leon's information, the Scorpio director paused briefly and then said decisively, "What's your plan?" "I plan to secure a safety net first." After pondering for a moment, Leon said, "The worst-case scenario for the Bureau would be if the Kralik Kingdom's royal family were wiped out, reducing the effectiveness of the Watcher's Palace. Since we now have the status of a diplomatic mission, allowing us lawful contact with the royal family of the Kralik Kingdom, we might as well avoid the worst outcome and seize the opportunity to catch a few royal family members first. In order to prevent the hostage from being kidnapped, why not simply become the kidnapper and tie up the hostage first?" After hearing Leon's suggestion, the corner of the Scorpio Bureau chief's mouth twitched heavily twice, feeling that familiar sensation returning. Although that's exactly the situation, and even if the Bureau later finds out that we've attacked the Kralik royal family, they would probably not deem us in violation. This seemingly problematic suggestion from Leon inexplicably makes people feel uneasy. Leon, instinctively feeling something was off but unable to pinpoint exactly what, the Scorpio Bureau chief on the other end of the trumpet hesitated and said, "Your plan isn't wrong, but it's somewhat aggressive. Let me think it over first." "Lord Edward, time is pressing." Leon held onto the trumpet trying to retreat, and earnestly reminded him, "Don't forget, the Aquarius director has connections with the Kralik Kingdom. Who knows how much information he has sold out? If he has indeed said everything, I am unsure if your identity is exposed, but my identity will undoubtedly be exposed. If we can't seize the opportunity while they're feeling lucky and haven't forbidden us from contacting the royal family, to catch a few royal family members first, once they realize they can't cover the situation and choose to take our royal family members as hostages, it will be us who are in a passive position." Indeed, after hearing Leon's reminder, the Scorpio Bureau chief on the other end of the trumpet couldn't help but clench his fists instinctively. Before taking on this investigation task, the Sagittarius director drew 3 bottom lines for him. The best scenario, of course, is that he smoothly finds out everything, and the royal family of the Kralik Kingdom is unharmed, minimizing the impact. If things are really not possible, then choose to prioritize safeguarding the royal family members of the Kralik Kingdom. And if things become extraordinarily troublesome and even the royal family members can't be fully protected, then the Bureau's last bottom line is to preserve the lineage of the Kralik royal family, to avoid weakening the effectiveness of the Watcher's Palace. The 3 bottom lines drawn by the Sagittarius director require action from high to low, but Leon's suggestion, on the contrary, is to start from low to high, intending to preserve the lineage first, then consider safeguarding the royal family, and finally try to understand the situation here. If I were to put it into words, Leon's method is indeed very aggressive, but if you think about it carefully, it seems more reliable than the Sagittarius director's idea. Lord Edward, seeing the Scorpio Bureau chief remain silent, Leon thought for a while, then proactively took a step back and said, "If you think the situation is still manageable, not to the direct execution point, then continue with your original plan, and as for the matter of kidnapping the royal family, leave it to me. But as the price for me taking this responsibility, I hope you can provide some help, at least guarantee the safety of Nicole and me, even if you don't directly show up. Okay? If I can't make a decision, then you go ahead and do it, taking the responsibility too. I just need to help." After hearing Leon's words, a subtle emotion flickered through the eyes of the Scorpio Bureau chief on the other end of the trumpet, and then he inadvertently displayed a tinge of self-mockery. "It seems that over the years, I have become too complacent. Even though my strength has grown stronger, almost a decade without any injury, my decisiveness has not improved, becoming more indecisive, and my courage has been overshadowed by this new cleaner. Thinking of this, the Scorpio bureau chief couldn't help but take a deep breath, a rare sense of boldness appearing on his face, and he loudly said into the trumpet on his shoulder, "All right, we'll go with your plan. But remember to take responsibility. At the time, don't say I commanded it. No way, courage is courage, but avoiding responsibility when possible is better. After all, this Leon kid is rather peculiar. Who knows what this might turn into? I don't want to end up like Olivia, with the performance locked in last place in just the first month of the year." "All right." Not minding the Scorpio bureau chief's careful thoughts, seeing him agree to back up his plan, Leon nodded in satisfaction and then began to discuss. "Lord Edward, my strength is not as great as yours, so if you don't show up, the number of targets to kidnap should be reduced. How about the third prince of the Kralik kingdom?" "The third prince? Andre?" Hearing Leon's words, the Scorpio bureau chief recalled for a moment, then said, "If I remember correctly, he is the member of the royal family responsible for receiving you? You plan to kidnap him?" "Yes." Leon nodded and said, "Nicole told me that the Kralik royal family has long since been reclusive and hasn't shown up in recent years. Currently, the only confirmed member of the royal family is him. And according to customary diplomatic etiquette between kingdoms, outside the standard reception process, if I intend to tour, I would also need a royal family member to accompany me. Once the diplomat returns, I will directly propose to tour the Kralik kingdom, creating ample opportunities to be alone with him. Directly capturing him would be the simplest plan. Using the excuse of needing a guide for touring to lure out the third Prince Andre, then directly taking the opportunity to capture him." After hearing Leon's simple but feasible plan, the Scorpio bureau chief pondered slightly, then nodded and said, "I think it's doable. As for after kidnapping the prince, Ruben, Frankie." As he said this, the Scorpio bureau chief called out the names of 2 second-level cleaners, then ordered nonchalantly, "You two will modify your original task. Starting now, your task is to cooperate with Leon, help him kidnap Prince Andre, and then use your skills to hide him well." After hearing the Scorpio bureau chief's order, the 2 second-level cleaners, who were at a loss beside him, couldn't help but exchange a glance, seeing a mutual astonishment on each other's faces. "Chief, didn't we agree earlier that if we just keep this big shot Leon in check and stop him from causing trouble, we would be credited? How come you suddenly changed your mind and started working with him? What's wrong? Do you have any questions?" "No. No problem." Seeing their boss being easily swayed by a few words, directly changing the task from protecting the royal family to kidnapping the royal family with Leon, the 2 second-level cleaners couldn't help but gripe internally, while hurriedly shaking their heads to ensure the task will be completed. Then it's settled. Seeing the 2 second-level cleaners having no objections, the Scorpio bureau chief decisively made the decision. Just in time, the Kralik kingdom is preparing for a festivity. Invite the third prince over tomorrow, and directly proceed with the kidnapping. If something goes wrong, I'll cover for you. Phew. Hosting ambassadors is really a bothersome task. Unaware that the ambassador he received today already had plans concerning him, after a whole day of diligent work, Andre, the third prince of the Kralik kingdom, pushed open the door to his room, not feeling too exhausted. "Andre, brother." As the door was opened, a crisp cry came from inside the room. The third prince squinted his eyes and found a beautiful girl with fair skin, who turned her head from a huge lounge chair by the window and teased with a hint of mockery. "Weren't you going to meet that Prince Leon? Why did you come back so soon? Didn't you again slack off dealing with those matters and slip away early?" "It's not exactly slipping away." Shaking his head unperturbedly, the third prince stepped into the room and replied while hanging his coat. "My task was just to welcome him. The rest isn't my responsibility. He can go talk to the foreign minister himself. Staying there wouldn't make a difference for me." "So you did slip away early, didn't you?" The girl blinked her emerald eyes, then laughed playfully and said, "When she heard you agreed to host the ambassador, Mother was so relieved and said that her favorite son had finally grown up and would do a good job this time. But now it seems her relief was a bit premature. No worries. The third prince slowly walked to the window, stretched out his arms to enjoy the afternoon sun, and said indifferently, "It's her fault for having such unrealistic expectations of me, especially now that the entire kingdom is taken over by those Adify duplicates. Whether I work hard or not makes no difference. The final outcome is insignificant anyway. Go, go. Hurry up and get up." Seeing the girl who still wouldn't let go of his lounge chair, even after he walked over, the third prince impatiently urged, "If you want to sunbathe, do it in your own room. Stop coming here and hogging my chair. My room is on the other end. There's barely any sun left now. Then go get a different chair. There are recliners for guests to sit over there." "No way." Firmly gripping the chair's armrests, the girl, who seemed about 13 or 14, shook her head vigorously and said, "Those chairs are so hard and uncomfortable. This big lounge chair is way better. You go sit on them yourself. And also, move a bit. Don't block my sun." "SK. What a nuisance." Seeing his sister clinging stubbornly to the armrests, refusing to get up, the third prince could only tut in resignation, fetch another chair, place it on the balcony, sit on it, and then lazily close his eyes. The sun was just right. The sun at around 4 in the afternoon wasn't as scorching, but when the golden sunlight, passing through the greenhouse's clear glass, splashed on his body, it still carried a warmth that made him feel lazy all over, slowing even his breathing. Unfortunately, this leisurely relaxation didn't last more than a few minutes before it was interrupted again. Andre, brother. While the prince, after more than 2 hours of hard work, was enjoying the afternoon sun, the girl on the bench suddenly moved towards him, curiously asking, "What kind of person is that Prince Leon? Good grief, you're so bothersome." Glancing unhappily at his sister, who disturbed his rest, Prince Andre answered with displeasure, "A man. Speak properly." Not satisfied with such a perfunctory answer, the girl blinked her emerald eyes, pouted, and said discontentedly, "If you keep answering like that, I'll pester you. I'll come here to take your chair during the best sunny afternoons from now on." What a nuisance. Knowing that his sister is capable of doing just that, and if he doesn't placate her, he will certainly have no peace in the future, Prince Andre could only sigh and answer helplessly, "He's a very strange person. Clearly, the strength behind him isn't that formidable, but his style is very aggressive. Moreover, he seems to harbor strong animosity towards the entire Kralik kingdom." "Huh? So you mean he dislikes me?" Seemingly startled by this answer, the charming girl looked a bit aggrieved and said, "I've never met him before, nor done anything to him. So why would he dislike me? Are you even listening?" Hearing this, Prince Andre couldn't help but glare at her. "I said he harbors animosity towards the entire Kralik kingdom, not just a single person. It's no different." Hearing this, the charming girl tilted her head, then stroked the snowy owl mask placed on the deck chair and said with blinking eyes, "Aren't I the entire Kralik kingdom now?" Listening to the charming girl, Prince Andre pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's not wrong. Anyway, he gives me a different vibe compared to the people from the Kingdom of Orlesen. Those cleaners from the Kingdom of Orlesen always act so cautiously on the surface, afraid that any outrageous move would draw our direct attention. But this guy is really odd. Clearly enlisted for an investigation by the Cleanup Bureau, which requires caution, yet he seems to disregard all that, behaving and speaking with high flair. Since disembarking from the Sky Clipper to now, I arranged a couple of troubles for him, and he never held back, retaliating without hesitation. I get the feeling that he's looking forward to stirring things up. Really? He sure is a strange one." Nodding in agreement, the charming girl tapped her fingers, resembling green onion stalks, lightly on the wooden snowy owl mask, and then proposed with keen interest, "Andre, brother, since you don't want to do the hosting work, why don't I go entertain him for you tomorrow? You entertain him for me?" Hearing her, Prince Andre furrowed his brows and turned his head to remind her, "Adify, human behavior is unpredictable. I don't know if he might harm you, and your body has just been made. Be careful not to let it get damaged. It's fine. If it breaks, we'll make another one." The charming girl blinked her emerald eyes and counted with her fingers, laughing cheerfully. "It's not all that hard to make a person about 65% oxygen, 18% carbon, 3% nitrogen, 1.5% calcium. Although some materials are hard to extract, once you understand human composition and combine it with the peculiar abilities of those abnormal objects, creating a person is quite simple." Speaking of which, I owe it to the Aquarius director for the knowledge that allowed this body to be made so quickly. Without the counterweight from the Aquarius director containing that knowledge, who knows how long it would have taken for me to have a body. Stretching lazily, the charming girl got up from the lounge chair, walked to the window, and looked toward the direction of District 3 next door, her emerald eyes filled with anticipation. Remember the Aquarius director mentioned, the knowledge in that counterweight was supposedly handed over by this Prince Leon, so I've wanted to meet him for a very long time. One night passes without a word. Early the next morning, as the warm yellow winter sun had just crossed the skyline pieced together with metal and earth, spreading over the long street filled with gears and copper pipes, Leon and the female journalist had already left the accommodation arranged by the Kralik Kingdom and boarded the oddly shaped tram. Due to the rather complex planning between different sectors and frequent changes in locations, the Kralik Kingdom has almost entirely abolished private transport nearly 100 years ago, switching to a comprehensive network of trams. In addition to the Kralik Kingdom's dual-layered city structure, except for several special roads like deliberately open airways, small floating cars are also completely banned from flying, so even visiting foreign envoys cannot enjoy the special treatment of chauffeur service and have to rely on public transport just like everyone else. However, compared to ordinary citizens, Prince Leon, as an envoy, still received a little privilege, like being able to have breakfast on the tram. Wait a minute. While you were in the Kralik Kingdom, did you eat this stuff every day? Stirring the purplish-pink meat paste in the bowl with a fork and pressing down on the green and yellow mixed vegetable puree on the plate, squeezing out a pool of greenish juice, the appetiteless Leon put down his utensils, turned to the female journalist next to him, and asked with difficulty, "Regardless of whether this thing tastes bad or not, I just want to know one thing now. What's the point of using a fork for this cold mush they serve? Well, it may not look appealing, but it's still very good for your health." Upon hearing Leon's speechless criticism, the female journalist, a former native of the Kralik Kingdom, was instantly embarrassed, then helplessly explained. "I'm not entirely sure of the specifics, but supposedly many years ago, the science department of the Kralik Kingdom, relying on Adify 01's computing power, discovered the optimal food ratio for human health. After completely eliminating the original food and enforcing it for 10 years, the Kralik Kingdom's annual medical expenses were directly reduced to 15% of what they used to be, and it's even said that the average lifespan could increase by 6 to 10 years. But if living longer means eating cold mush for 60 years, I'd rather live a shorter life." Scooping a spoonful of unseasoned vegetable puree and stiffly forcing it into his mouth, feeling its bizarre texture like half-chewed cud forcibly taken from a goat's mouth during regurgitation, Leon's facial features involuntarily twisted. Honestly, I've never understood the Aquarius director more. Anyone who eats this semi-fermented wet garbage for over 100 years would definitely start going insane. Sigh. Forget it, it's only for a few days anyway. Suppressing his disgust, Leon swallowed the life-supporting meal in his mouth, digging into various mushes without tasting them, while using his finger to touch the black goat's horn, leveraging soul communication to ask, "Let's not talk about the food. Nicole, are you ready for the operation?" "Ready." Upon hearing Leon's inquiry, the female journalist first glanced inside the carriage at the few reception staff following herself and Leon, then nodded slightly. "I know all the cleaners at the Gemini Subbureau. If someone is protecting Prince Andrei, no matter who it is, I'm confident I can subdue them first." "As long as you're confident." Nodding at her words, Leon reached into his pocket and tapped the little flower inside with his fingertip. "What about the two seniors? Are you ready?" "No problem. We're ready too." Receiving Leon's soul wave, the The 2 second-level cleaners hiding in the flower bud also responded affirmatively. Great. Before we start the operation, let's go over each of our tasks one last time. Blinking, Leon spoke seriously. According to the plan I discussed with Director Edward, when we meet Prince Andre, I'll ask him to take me on a tour of the Kralik Kingdom Festival, trying to create a chance to separate him from his guards amidst the crowd. After that, Nicole will handle the cleaners possibly accompanying him, and I'll take the opportunity to knock out Prince Andre and hand him over to Senior Ruben, who will then use the flower fairy to hide him in a flower bud and take him away. Meanwhile, Director Edward and several other seniors are stationed in the 05 living area 3 districts away to back us up. If something goes wrong, Senior Frankie will lure us away and directly send us to Director Edward, who will assist in our immediate evacuation. Is there any problem with any of this? No problem. The female journalist nodded slightly, swallowing the vegetable mush in her mouth. I'm ready. In Leon's pocket, Ruben, dressed in a leaf outfit, patted his chest. Rest assured, everything will definitely go smoothly. Also hiding inside the flower, Frankie, with a miniature fishing rod on his back, made an okay gesture and confidently assured, as long as Prince Andre appears, we're guaranteed to catch him. I apologize. An elderly attendant dressed in formal attire bowed towards Leon and the female journalist, his expression slightly apologetic as he spoke. Prince Andre suddenly caught a cold last night and is now running a high fever, so he might not be able to accompany you to the festival. What rotten luck. Looking at the sincerely faced elderly attendant in front of him, Leon's mouth couldn't help but twitch hard, his face turning as green as the vegetable mush churning in his stomach. To facilitate today's operation, I had a hard time persuading the Scorpio Bureau chief, preparing meticulously for half the night, not only memorizing the map of the festival blocks but also planning an escape in case of an ambush. And just at the crucial moment when the bullets loaded and the traps set, the prey unexpectedly didn't leave its burrow and stayed home napping. Are you sure he caught a cold? Having prepared his bow and arrow only to miss the shot, seeing before him the soul visibly dancing as the elderly attendant obviously lied, the disappointed Leon couldn't help but darken his face and say, "Why do I feel like your Prince Andre just simply doesn't want to come out? This? You must be joking." Hearing Leon's questioning, the elderly attendant's eyelids couldn't help but twitch slightly, awkwardly chuckling twice before insincerely saying, "His Highness Andre is usually quite diligent, but unfortunately, his health has always been poor since childhood, so catching colds occasionally is inevitable. I hope you can understand." Heh, how do you expect me to understand that? Since the target Prince Andre wasn't present, Leon naturally had no interest in touring the festival, directly feigning indignation. How many times has this happened now? Even though our nation's strength is nothing compared to your Kralik, I'm still a prince. Isn't it outrageous that you can't even arrange for a single royal member to accompany me? Sir Leon. Just as the prince was about to make a scene and leave, a crisp greeting suddenly came from afar. Apologies for being late. Nodding apologetically towards the somewhat surprised Leon, a young lady, strolling over with a group, lifted her skirt corners gracefully to give a standard ladylike curtsy. Then with a smile like a blooming flower said, "I am Philea, the 6th princess. Andre's brother is unwell, but to show respect to your excellency, a special envoy was sent to find me so that I could accompany you for the festival. Is this arrangement to your satisfaction?" 6th Princess Philea? Looking at the young girl in front of him, dressed in a long gown and smiling beautifully, Leon raised his eyebrows slightly, then turned his head to exchange a glance with the female reporter. "Have you heard of this princess?" "Not really sure, but her hair color and eye color are the same as Prince Andre's, so she should be a direct member of the royal family indeed." "Then let's catch her. Anyway, it's just to guarantee it, as long as it's the royal bloodline, whoever comes is the same." In less than 0.1 seconds, after reaching an agreement through eye contact, the angry Prince Leon's expression softened, and he nodded slightly with satisfaction. "That's more like it. Let's go. I can't wait to see what your celebration looks like here." All right. Looking at Leon, whose expression bore slight arrogance and was very different from what she understood, the girl named Philea blinked her green eyes, then lifted her slender arm and slightly indicated toward the area being decorated for the celebration, smiling as she introduced. This way, Your Highness. Actually, the celebration in our Kralik kingdom isn't much different from yours. They are all for commemorating some rather important days. But compared to your country, the celebrations here don't celebrate the founding day or the birth of some historical celebrities, but instead, they tend to commemorate the appearance of some key technologies. What do you mean by key technologies? They are important researches that changed the era and have continued to be passed down till now. After bringing Leon into the district preparing for the celebration, the lively young girl pointed at the colorful signboard hung at the highest point. With a hint of longing in her eyes, she said, "For example, this recent celebration is to commemorate the discovery of the hover crystal. Without the mining and utilization of this mineral, there wouldn't be today's city of machinery, Kralik." Hover crystal, huh? After hearing Philea's words, Leon slightly furrowed his brow, recalling the robber siblings temporarily left at the residence, hidden in 2 orchids. For Kralik Kingdom, hover crystal is indeed extremely important. Without such a strange mineral that can greatly reduce weight, it would be impossible to create this miraculous city capable of moving and assembling freely. But for places like the floating crystal mine, the existence of this thing is an immensely huge disaster, and in Cheshire, the hometown of the robber siblings, as well as other floating crystal mines, who knows how many people have been left destitute because of this thing. Leon, sir. After standing and looking under the colorful signboard for a while, the girl with green eyes spoke eagerly. Actually, you arrived a bit early. The celebration hasn't yet started. We are just doing some preliminary preparations, and the real floating day is 2 days later. At that time, not only will the bustle be dozens of times what it is now, but we will also temporarily lift the restrictions, allowing several districts above the celebration area to move aside, and permit the machines powered by hover crystals to soar freely. If you are interested, I can accompany you then to take another look. Then I'll trouble you. Responding perfunctorily, Leon chatted idly with Philea, while reaching to adjust his ram's horn, glancing at the guards trailing the 2 of them. The soul strength of these guards is fairly normal, although some are more vigorous. They are still within the realm of ordinary people. Mixing with a cleaner is unlikely. As for the other people on Celebration Street, they all seem normal too, and most of their souls appear to be somewhat happy. Looking at the surrounding soul flames, which are higher in terms of purity and stability when the flame leaps slightly compared to the royal capital, Leon's brow slightly relaxed. Compared to most ordinary people who have just emerged from the subsistence line in the kingdom, Kralik Kingdom undoubtedly has abundant material conditions, and since there's less need to worry about livelihood issues, the souls here are much stable. Just like the Princess Philea beside him, appearing relaxed and simple. But somehow it's a bit weird. Staring at Princess Philea's soul flame and noticing its stability and purity, Leon's brow furrowed once more. It wasn't strange at a glance, but upon closer examination, Princess Philea's soul seems somewhat overly orderly. The souls of most people are noisy. This is unrelated to one's good or bad morality. It's simply that they cannot control their thoughts, and inevitably their mind wanders when not focused. And emotionally they always seem chaotic. Even if they are exhilarated, they inevitably get frustrated due to unforeseen, trivial reasons such as bad weather today, or a leaf of chives on the teeth of someone they like, dampening their previously high spirits slightly. But Princess Philea's soul gives a feeling of a very perfectly rounded feeling. Happiness is just happiness. Longings are just longings. Joy is just joy, with absolutely no extraneous emotions mixed in. If one must describe it, other souls are like a compass held in hand. Although they strictly adhere to the operating rules, they inevitably change direction due to the holder's subtle arm tremors. While Princess Philea is like an extremely precisely adjusted watch, no matter how much the person wearing the watch sings, dances, or raps, it always ticks second by second, looking very precise. A unique precision that belongs to artificial products. Having finally found the words to describe this strange sensation, Leon's pupils suddenly shrank, looking at her with suspicion. He remembered Aquarius Director said that the royal family of Kralik Kingdom has been controlled, and upon receiving this information, he naturally assumed that this control was in the physical form of house arrest. But looking at Princess Philea's soul, could it be that the control mentioned by Aquarius Director is not imprisonment or hijacking, but some kind of soul restraint and modification? Leon, sir? The girl with green eyes seemed very perceptive. Leon's brief moment of losing composure was detected by her. Raising her head to look at Leon, the lively young girl asked somewhat puzzledly, "What's wrong? Did I do something wrong?" "Nothing." Glancing at her soul filled with pure amazement and no other mixed emotions, Leon blinked, then smiled. "I was just thinking about something. Got a bit distracted." "I see." Having noticed that Leon, who hadn't discerned her true identity since earlier, was looking around a lot, the lively young girl couldn't help but smile smugly inside, and then blinked her big eyes, politely and full of curiosity, asking, "Leon, sir, can you tell me what you were thinking about just now?" "Sure." Glancing at Philea's soul, with thoughts and emotions interlocked like a smooth gear set, Leon nodded with a smile. "I was just thinking, a girl as cute as you, if she gets punched, she'd probably cry for a long time, wouldn't she?" "What?" After listening to Leon's thoughts, Philea's originally precise and smooth soul suddenly experienced an extremely bizarre disruption, as if a heap of sand were poured into a tightly meshing gear set, almost directly getting stuck. "What does it mean? A cute girl like you, if punched, would certainly cry for a long time? I've been so polite to him, and I look so cute and respectful. Why would he want to punch me? What is his motive for doing such a thing? What is the purpose behind this statement? Where is the logic in all this? What feedback should I provide? How should a human react?" And at the moment when Princess Philea was at a loss for how to react, her expression completely frozen, a deafening rumble seemed to resound like the simultaneous stamping of tens of thousands of horses, 23 blocks away in an underground building buried under a lake. "What's going on? Adify 01 has started computing?" Noticing the abnormal operation of the number 1 machine intelligence, seemingly engaged in some very complex calculation, all the humans in the underground building who were initially attending to their respective tasks suddenly became alert, stopping their work and swarming like ants towards the largest control panel in the main hall. Meanwhile, behind the huge glass facade of the main hall, the gigantic apparatus wrapped in strange gelatinous material and immersed completely in the lake water was operating at an extremely terrifying speed. In that enormous apparatus, which is on average more than 15 meters high and occupies an area nearly the size of 2 football fields, countless hair-thin metal connecting rods were rapidly pushing, like pounding garlic, according to their own 16-milled grooves, driving the billions of gears at the ends to continuously spin. Those grain-sized gears would pause, almost imperceptibly to the naked eye, every 64th of a second, and at the moments these precise gears paused, the sliding grooves tangent to them would briefly open, touching the dot matrix grid responsible for recording data behind, leaving rows of puncture points several times finer than pinpricks. "What's happening?" Seeing the gigantic apparatus which had mobilized almost 1/20th of its regions, the scholars who hurried over were quick to surround the control panel, launching an indignant denunciation against the 50-plus operators who looked dumbfounded. "Stop it quickly. Do you know how much energy is consumed by computing in such a state for even 1 second? Who applied for Adify 01's computing permission? Damn it, the consumption of number wheels and dot matrices is too rapid. Speak up. What are you bastards calculating?" "Silence." Picking up a fallen chair from beside him, slamming it twice onto the side of the metal instrument panel, drowning out the scholar's denunciations with the loud noise, a middle-aged man with graying temples, whose collar was embroidered with half a mechanical clock, and who appeared of quite high status, angrily spoke. "Shut up. Listen to me first. No one applied for Adify's computation today. The calculation currently ongoing was initiated by itself." Initiated by Adify itself? After hearing the shift manager's explanation, the scholars couldn't help but look at one another. Yet they didn't quiet down but instead erupted in a more intense uproar. How could that be? With Adify's computing power, it wouldn't struggle even if recording the scales of every fish in this lake. Yes, the last time it calculated travel data for 1.3 million people, the mobilization extent was only about a third of this. Could it be that measurement of world's basic elements project again? It shouldn't be. Wasn't it said that with the current conditions it couldn't fully compute, and it stopped after calculating just over 60? Everyone shut up. Once again hammering the metal instrument panel, suppressing the scholar's clamor, the gray-templed person in charge frowned tightly and spoke. This is Adify's own computation, meaning we can't stop it. Hurry back to your own work. Don't block the control room. Get out. Scholars below level 3, out. After cursing a couple of times, chasing away a portion of the scholars, the person in charge returned to the console and began questioning Adify-01, trying to find out what exactly it was computing. After a delay of several seconds, the crazily running machinery behind the glass facade finally slowed down slightly, and soon, from the speaking tubes on either side of the instrument panel, came a female voice around 13-14 years old synthesized from rapid knocking sounds. Question: what motivates a psychologically healthy male human to unprovokedly attack a cute young female and attempt to calculate the precise duration of her crying? Oh? What the hell kind of question is this? Listening to the lifelike, confused tone simulated by Adify-01, the remaining scholars in front of the console looked at each other in bewilderment. Unprovokedly attacking a cute young female and then listening to her cry, isn't that beastly behavior? Are you sure this thing is mentally sound? I might know the reason. Just when the scholars, with an average age of over 40, were collectively stumped by Adify-01's question, a 20-something female scholar in the corner of the main hall hesitantly raised her hand. I guess this might also be a form of affection, right? Under the gaze of numerous bigwigs, the young female scholar with the lowest level scholar badge hanging on her chest shyly said, blushing, "My sister gave birth to a child last year, and when I saw that child's rosy little face, I couldn't resist the urge to pinch it secretly. I feel it might be for this reason. A form of affection?" After hearing the young female scholar's guess, the other scholars in the main hall recalled and immediately revealed an expression of sudden realization. Indeed, they've perhaps done similar things themselves. Upon seeing particularly cute little children, there's indeed always a strange urge to tease or bully them slightly. Noticing the consensus expressed by the scholars, Adify finally obtained the answer and ceased its frantic computation, and the gigantic apparatus behind the glass facade also quieted down again. Subsequently, 23 blocks away, Princess Phylea, who had been standing by the roadside for a while, raised her beautifully crafted little face, wrinkled her nose at Leon, and smiled tentatively with a tinge of shyness. "Thank you for your affection, but it'd be better if you didn't do this." I want to hit you, and you actually thank me? And with such embarrassment? Watching as Phylea, after a brief chaos, gradually restored her original precise mechanical feel, losing once again the human warmth in her soul, Leon couldn't help but frown, then confirmed his speculation. Indeed, the royal family of the Kralik Kingdom has been thoroughly controlled, and that intelligent machine named Adify-01 might have found a way to harness the abnormal object, exerting influence over the souls of the royal family members. Thinking of this, Leon couldn't help but glance at Princess Phylea with pity. What a good child she is, obedient, cute, and polite, yet she has been controlled by the abnormal object. Surely this warrants some assistance. As for how to help, recalling the moment of deliberate provocation earlier, the way Phylea's soul finally lost its precision and began to waver like a normal human's, a flash of realization appeared in Leon's eyes. She needs stimulation. She needs to be thoroughly stimulated. Boom! Behind the glass curtain wall, the giant machine, which had been silent for less than 30 seconds, began to operate wildly once more. Not good. Adify is calculating again. Someone. Quick! Someone come. Question. Amidst the worried expressions of the scholars, the metal tubes on either side of the main console once again emitted the puzzled inquiry of Adify-01. If all the wood on a ship is replaced little by little until none of the original wood remains, Is the ship still the same one? No. What kind of absurd question is this? Faced with Atify 01's puzzling inquiries, in order to calm it down quickly and save energy, the scholars from various technical disciplines had to engage in a lively debate, hoping to come up with a somewhat reasonable answer. However, before they could reach a conclusion, the rumbling sound from the lake suddenly grew louder, and another similarly perplexing question came from the metal tube. Question: if there is a barber who only shaves those who cannot shave themselves, can he shave himself? Boom. Question. Without giving the scholars any time to think, as the rumbling sound of the giant machine grew louder and louder, Atify 01 again asked dazedly. A person who is very skilled at finding joy amidst hardship died from exhaustion. Could he possibly have died from joy? Boom. Question. When the temperature of the lake water reached the warning line, the red lights around the main console lit up in batches, and amid the frantic expressions of the scholars, Atify 01 asked in slight pain, why do humans suddenly decide they should buy chickens and basketballs after purchasing a pair of suspenders, and feel it's completely reasonable? What's the connection between the three? Who knows what's the connection here? Faced with Atify's increasingly incoherent questions, the elite scholars rushing from Research Zone 1, realizing something was wrong, were nearly driven mad. Protection mechanism. Quick! Activate the protection mechanism. Having given up answering those outrageous questions, the person in charge, seeing the flashing red warning lights becoming faster, could only shout at the top of his lungs amid the deafening rumble from the machines in the lake. Don't let it keep calculating. Activate the protection mechanism. Make it skip questions it can't calculate, just like the other subordinate units. It can't skip. After trying to activate the protection mechanism twice with no response, the sweat-drenched operator said in terror, Atify has the highest authority. It refuses to initiate the protection mechanism and wants to call on more computing power. Then disconnect it immediately. Grabbing the operator's collar, his face turning purple, the person in charge roared, disconnect all remote communication technologies. Don't leave a single one. Seal off Zone 1 temporarily. But if we do that, no buts. Go disconnect the communications immediately. If we're late, this year's energy will be calculated away by it. I'll go right away. Princess Phylea? Watching the girl who suddenly lowered her head, her slender shoulders starting to tremble slightly, Leon, who was paying for suspenders, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Or let me ask differently. Watching her shake like a sieve, yet profoundly devoid of mechanical senses, with a soul free of rigid routine, Leon couldn't help but inquire with slight anticipation. Do you feel a sudden lightness in your mind? A sensation of being released from certain control? Not lightness, but I definitely want to be relieved sooner. Under Leon's expectant gaze, Phylea instinctively stepped back half a pace, her beautiful big eyes filled with an inherent fear. This human, he is really too peculiar. All the data she had accumulated over the years to cope with human behavior patterns had undergone tens of thousands of validations, absolutely conforming to the human race. Yet, all those numerous validated items, when applied to this male human before her, seemed entirely inapplicable. None of them could normally apply. Not only could she not predict his behavior, understand his motives, she couldn't even hear the feedback calculations after his actions. This is simply, wait, could this be what's called fear? Felt through, not via any computation but spontaneously generated uncontrollably. A strong impulse to distance herself from this man. Atify's big eyes revealed a hint of delight. Emotion. This is human emotion. And there's more. This must be the feeling called surprise. These two emotions are not calculated, but rather influenced by the physical body, spontaneously generated in the soul through the interaction with him. I seem to understand humans a bit. Having discovered the change within herself, Phylea's heart was suddenly filled with immense joy, unable to resist looking back up at Leon with eyes brimming with surprise. Who would have thought that just speaking with him could lead to such great evolution? Then if I could stay by him and interact a bit longer. Maybe not. Seeing the emotion in Leon's eyes, which was probably called eager anticipation. Princess Philea's smile froze slightly before she decisively negated her recent reckoning. Although continuing to interact with him might yield some gains, it feels like something possibly more important could be lost. Moreover, Zone 1 has temporarily disconnected its connection with me. So now I've lost the main body's assistance and can't compute those crazy questions he's asking. If I keep listening, I fear my brain might burn out. Sir Leon. After taking a deep breath, Princess Philea lifted her skirt to perform a standard lady's bow, then forced a smile as she spoke. I'm suddenly feeling unwell. Perhaps I've caught something from Andre's brother. So if you don't mind, may I temporarily excuse myself? As if fearing Leon might refuse, she hurriedly added, I have other brothers and sisters. If Prince would still like someone to accompany him, I can have them come over right away. No need. Seeing his target seemingly wanting to leave, Leon's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, amidst Philea's frightened expression, he took a sudden step forward, resolutely grabbing her wrist. Don't be afraid. I'm saving you. Watching the girl that looked like a deer caught by the forelegs, trying to struggle backward with eyes full of fear, Leon switched on the reliable older brother badge to enhance his persuasion while sincerely speaking. Though you might not believe it or feel any abnormality, Princess Philea, you have actually been controlled by Adify-01. Ah, me? Controlled by Adify-01? After hearing Leon's words, the girl with emerald eyes was momentarily stunned, experiencing what humans call bewilderment once again. Strictly speaking, this body, created less than 2 months ago, is indeed controlled by Adify-01, because I am Adify-01. I know. This sounds really unbelievable. Watching the girl whose soul was wildly shaking, the peculiar precision almost completely vanished. Leon understood that his shock therapy had taken effect. He immediately seized the moment to pursue further. Actually, besides being a prince, I'm also a cleaner at the Virgin Branch. Through certain channels, we learned a piece of information. It seems that a mysterious organization is targeting royal families of various countries. And according to the agreement between the Cleanup Bureau and the royal family, the Bureau is responsible for protecting royal family members' safety. So we initiated an investigative mission to find out about the situation in the Kralik Kingdom and protect the royal family members. I know all of this, but how did you end up protecting me? So, that's what it is. After being bewildered and silent for a few seconds, instinctively feeling that approaching this man would bring great misfortune, Princess Philea couldn't help but blink her big eyes and, under Leon's gaze, forced a smile and said, This matter, I'm not very clear about it either. How about I go back and tell Brother Andre and let him discuss it with you? Of course, we will also contact Prince Andre. As for you, after grabbing the emerald-eyed girl's wrist tightly, Leon looked at her soul, which was filled with wanting to escape, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems this child still doesn't believe him, or is unaware that the royal family has already been controlled, so he'll just have to stick to the original plan and tie her up first. Sorry, but we'll have to trouble you to come with us for a bit. After signaling to the already prepared female reporter, Leon swung a hand chop onto the back of the emerald-eyed girl's neck amid her scream, trying to knock her out and take her away. However, after receiving a hand chop, Philea only let out a cry of pain but did not faint. Instead, clutching her struck neck, she turned her head and opened her mouth with bewildered eyes. You! Sorry, maybe I hit the wrong spot. After giving Philea an apologetic glance, Leon, who only trained last night on how to knock out young men, judged that the knockout technique might not be suitable for a girl, so he slightly adjusted the force and angle and delivered another hand chop. Ouch! Why isn't it working? Is this kid so resistant to fainting? Seeing Philea's neck turning red after receiving another chop, Leon couldn't help but feel embarrassed, then raised his hand again, adding more force. Smack! Accompanied by a rather dull thud, Philea's head visibly jolted forward when struck by Leon with added force, her big watery eyes already brimming with tears of pain. Please, let me at least explain. There is a signal receiver embedded under the skin at the back of my head, continuously emitting microelectric currents to stimulate my brain. As long as this thing is intact, how can attacking my nerve cluster be effective? Moreover, this way of knocking out is dangerous. You are a prince at least. Can't you use some anesthetic spray or medication instead of knocking me out in such a crude way? Stop! Just as Philea was about to break down, the guards trailing far behind finally reacted. That man, supposedly a prince, suddenly went wild and started beating up Princess Philea. What are you doing? Let go of the princess! Accompanied by several angry shouts, the horrified guards suddenly swarmed, trying to subdue the maniac attacking Princess Philea. However, just as they started moving, the small flower in Leon's pocket shook slightly, and hundreds of thumb-thick vines suddenly erupted from the once clean and tidy street, tripping all the rushing guards. And targeting Leon, he timely turned around and scattered a large number of seeds. These rice-sized seeds didn't even hit the ground before transforming again into a mass of vines under some strange power. The newly emerged vines, like flexible green snakes, intertwined with the earlier vines that tripped the guards, quickly binding the fallen guards tightly. Despite having dealt with the guards, Leon didn't let down his guard. He raised his hand for the fourth time, chopping Philea's neck, while shouting towards the female reporter. 5 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Got it. Before Leon finished his sentence, the female reporter disappeared from her original spot, appearing 50 steps away on the opposite street, tore through the building's exterior wall barehanded, revealing the man tunneling through the soil inside. Apparently, he didn't expect to be caught, and the man wearing a diving mask visibly jumped in shock, quickly retreating as if diving back into a body of water, with most of his body re-entering the wall. But before he completely vanished into the wall, 2 hands glowing with white light ripped the tough soil and stone wall, once again exposing the diving man. You, Nicole? Long time no see. Smiling at the shocked diving man, the female reporter grabbed his right leg and swung him half a circle like a shot put, then directly tossed him to the right. Caught off guard, the diving man barely had time to scream, flailing as he flew across 2 buildings to crash into a middle-aged woman standing with her eyes closed. What on earth? Interruption to the curse, mid-process, caused by the crashing man. The middle-aged woman clutching a voodoo doll in her hand angrily got up. But before she could start cursing, a hand glowing with white light snatched the voodoo doll from her grasp and tore it into pieces. Immediately afterward, both captured cleaners felt a numbness on their necks and the world before them went black. Oh boy, is this the efficiency of a level 1 cleaner? Seeing Nicole dispatch 2 Gemini branch cleaners in less than 5 seconds, Leon couldn't help but be amazed, and his opinion of the female reporter was greatly elevated. Though her brains are somewhat lacking, Nicole's strength is genuinely impressive. He didn't even see clearly what she did, just felt a flash, and the 2 cleaners tasked with protecting Philea were knocked out cold. Considering how highly regarded she is by the Aquarius director, apart from that pair of untouchable hand, she likely has other matching abnormal objects that greatly enhance speed and reaction. If caught off guard, he probably wouldn't even have a chance to resist. She'd take him down instantly. Truly impressive. He sighed in admiration, glanced at the teary-eyed Philea, and abandoned the idea of chopping her unconscious, instead shouting to the female reporter in the distance. Nicole, this kid won't faint. Come help me chop her. Boo-hoo-hoo. After being captured by Leon and the female reporter, and taking 3 or 4 hits each, the unfortunate Philea finally seized the opportunity and clung to Leon's arm, tearfully saying, "Stop hitting me. I'll go with you. Okay?" Seeing the green-eyed girl's neck reddened, Leon exchanged an awkward glance with the female reporter, then embarrassedly explained, "Princess Philea, please don't blame us for being rough. It's mainly because only after you lose consciousness we can put you in the flower and take you away. So, can you bear with it a little longer? It feels like it should be enough soon." Boo-hoo-hoo. But the problem is, I can't faint. Explaining her situation, Philea's nose turned red, on the verge of tears. All my guards have been knocked down by you, my cleaner responsible for protecting me has also been captured by you, and I have no ability to resist. Can't you just tie me up like ordinary kidnappers? Well, that might actually work. After hearing the green-eyed girl's suggestion, Leon couldn't help but ponder its feasibility. There was no oxygen in his mirror dog, and Reuben's flower fairy could only hold those who don't resist. Any sign of resistance, and they'd fall right out of the flower, so he insisted on knocking Philea out. But if she was willing to cooperate and not resist, then putting her in the flower fairy wasn't necessary. At worst, they could just carry her. The only troublesome part was that her soul was full of defenses against him, ready to scream and draw enemies' attention at any moment. As for the screaming, there might be a solution. After touching his cufflinks, Leon took out a small curled sheep's tail from the mirror world and handed it to the female reporter, then pointed at Philea. Nicole, put this on her. Is this the secret tail? Surprised, the female reporter frowned at the abnormal object that originally belonged to her, then suddenly realized. You want to make it so she can't call for help? Yes. Leon nodded. We're short-handed right now and can't keep an eye on her. But if we put the secret tail on her, even if she runs into the street screaming, no one will notice. Plus, whether it's you bearing the abnormal object's cost or me with the other sheep parts, other components, we can immediately locate her position without having to constantly monitor her. Good idea. Giving Leon a thumbs up, the female reporter, amidst Philea's look of despair, took the speechless secret tail and aimed it at her, while Leon extended his finger and lightly flicked the fishhook hanging from his lapel. Name: Resentment Hook, Control. Appearance: a metal hook-shaped fishing tackle, with the rust-proof coating worn off from years of use, looking quite old, yet still very functional. Ability: Resistance Lock. Price: cannot target any fish lifeform, and if touched by any fish lifeform, the user shall suffer the god of fishing and hunting's disdain. File: this is the relic of a fishing enthusiast who, after hooking the sacrificial fish of the god of fishing and hunting, was cursed. He couldn't catch any fish lifeforms in any pond under the god's control. For 50 years, this fishing enthusiast traveled half the world trying to find a pond that could break the curse. But he was never successful until he died. And his fishing gear, filled with resentment, became a miraculous abnormal object that could catch anything after meeting certain conditions, known as the legendary perfect tackle, with this resentment hook being one of them. Any existence with a contamination value lower than the user's, once hooked by the resentment hook, will temporarily lose the ability to resist until being pulled by the transcending line to the user's side or falls into the restricted fishing net. Evaluation: the angler never goes empty-handed, but unfortunately, what's caught isn't necessarily fish. Contamination value: 6. Thud. Upon sensing the movement on the fishhook, an invisible fishing line that hadn't existed before suddenly materialized from the air, then pulled tight with a subtle vibration. Then Leon felt his whole body freeze slightly, losing control over his body as if he were a fish being pulled out of water, experiencing an immense dragging force and being lifted off the ground uncontrollably. And the world that was once clear before Leon's eyes turned into countless blurring images, retreating rapidly like the scene outside a high-speed train window until, splash! An overwhelmingly fishy nylon fishing net suddenly came down, covering Leon's head, and his body that had lost control finally regained the ability to move. Shush! Suddenly, the net was lifted from his head, and standing before Leon with a pale complexion was a tall, lanky man holding a large suitcase and gazing expectantly. How did it go? Taking off the restricted fishing net and tossing it to the female cleaner beside him, the Scorpio bureau chief eagerly asked the pale-faced Leon before him. Was the plan successful? Did you catch Prince Andre? The plan wasn't very successful, and Prince Andre didn't appear, but a member of the royal family was captured as planned. Nodding to the Scorpio bureau chief, Leon, who had been yanked by the fishing line across 3 entire blocks in an instant, and whose stomach was churning, smiled and opened his mouth. Considerably suc. Blug blug. Though protected by an abnormal object, Leon, having crossed kilometers in the blink of an eye, did not suffer physical harm. Yet the sense of imbalance from visually perceiving rapid forward movement that his body denied still caused severe dizziness and nausea. When not speaking, he barely managed to hold it in. But as soon as he opened his mouth to answer, the contents relentlessly pushing into his throat burst forth uncontrollably. The purplish-pink meat paste he had eaten in the car earlier, along with the mixed yellow and green vegetable puree, all combined with clear saliva and murky stomach acid, spewed out in a flood-like torrent from Leon's weird smile, washing towards the Scorpio bureau chief's head. The vomit spraying from your mouth inflicts an exceptionally large psychological shadow on a being with a contamination value above 60, successfully activating the special silver-level badge, Foul Mouth. Foul mouth. A kind word can warm a winter day. Harsh words hurt like a chilly June cold. Yet what comes from your mouth is 10 times more chilling than harsh words. Where effect. Hurtful language coming from your mouth will be especially painful, akin to being sprayed head to toe with vomit. Advanced route. None. Hidden trait. Unneeded to wear clean-up Bureau Scorpio Subbureau Chief Edward has developed a massive psychological shadow towards you, and the possibility of him refusing joint actions with you will significantly increase. Sorry. Just now. I felt a bit dizzy. After throwing up thoroughly, Leon's complexion finally looked a little better. He then turned to the Scorpio bureau chief, whose face was ashen, and said, "Lord Edward, our plan was relatively successful. Although Prince Andrei did not appear, we did manage to capture his sister, which counts as successfully capturing a member of the royal family." Not able to completely dodge in time, the Scorpio bureau chief, who got vomited on his pants, remained silent for a moment, then nodded with a twitching face. "It's good that it went smoothly. Does she know anything about the royal family?" "I doubt she knows much." Upon hearing this, Leon shook his head and said, "She's only about 12 or 13, and she doesn't even realize she's being controlled. The intelligence obtained from her isn't very credible. However, Nicole also captured 2 cleaners from the Gemini branch, so we might be able to learn something from them." After listening to Leon, the Scorpio branch chief finally felt a sense of relief. Although there was a slight hiccup in the plan, and they couldn't capture the intended target, catching the princess and 2 cleaners from the Gemini branch made the trip worthwhile. Additionally, considering that this plan was proposed by Leon and even executed by him personally, it was already a decent outcome to have it carried out smoothly without causing any major disturbances. "You've worked hard." With a slight nod to Leon, the Scorpio bureau chief turned his head, glanced at the female reporter caught in the net and the green-eyed girl, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief in his heart. He then pleasantly said to Leon, "Here's what I'm thinking. We currently have a member of the royal family in our hands, and you, having kidnapped the princess, can't show your face anymore. So why don't we let Miss Nicole stay alone to continue helping with our investigation, while you temporarily halt your mission to escort this little princess away? How does that proposal sound to you?" "I think your proposal is simply trying to send me away." Glancing at the insincere smile of the Scorpio bureau chief, Leon knew that the hidden trait of words betray had activated, making him subconsciously want to refuse working together. Without hesitation, he shook his head. "I can't leave yet." "Why is that?" The Scorpio bureau chief maintained his expression, smiling as he inquired, "Are there still things left undone?" "Yes." Recalling the information from the robber siblings, Leon nodded slightly and, maintaining his composure, said, "I have a few things I'd like to investigate. Although they should have little to do with that mysterious organization and the Kralik royal family, they might produce extremely dangerous abnormal objects, so I feel it's necessary to pay attention to them." "I see." After hearing Leon's concerns, the Scorpio bureau chief didn't hesitate for even a second. He didn't even ask what Leon wanted to investigate and directly nodded approvingly, saying, "In that case, Miss Nicole can follow us to investigate Atify 01 and the Kralik royal family, while you protect this little princess closely, and at the same time you can look into what you want to know. To facilitate your actions and ensure the safety of the little princess, I can have Alger accompany you. Once you've completed your investigations, you can leave the Kralik Kingdom with them. How does that sound?
Alger?
Is that the level 1 cleaner nicknamed Wireman? Upon hearing the Scorpio Bureau chief's words, Leon couldn't help but glance sideways at him. A tall, muscular cleaner with a beard was looking at him somewhat surprised. He was likely Wireman Alger. Looks like a tough guy, and being level 1, his strength shouldn't be bad. Thinking this way, temporarily exiting the mission, getting a level 1 cleaner as a bodyguard, and having the opportunity to investigate the hover crystal in Cheshire might not be too bad. Don't agree to it. Just as Leon was about to nod in agreement, the faintly anxious voice of the female reporter suddenly rang in his ear. By arranging it this way, he definitely intends to claim credit for the achievements. Somehow transmitting her voice to Leon's ear, the female reporter, who was adapting to the dizziness after being dragged over by the space-piercing fishing line, said anxiously, "Including me, there are now 1 Zodiac Director, 2 level 1 cleaners, and 3 season level 2 cleaners, plus you, a freak. That's enough to catch the true god. There's no need to be this cautious. Moreover, even if it's inconvenient for you to show your face, hiding you in flowers and taking you along isn't difficult. He's arranging Princess Phylea with you and assigning people to follow you, clearly intending to monopolize this investigation task's credit. Oh ho, you seem quite knowledgeable about these workplace intrigues?" Surprised, Leon glanced at the female reporter, gave her a reassuring look, and then smiled while nodding to the Scorpio Bureau chief. "All right, let's go with the chief's proposal. I'll be counting on you, Alger." No worries, no worries. What? Didn't you hear what I said?" Seeing that Leon, despite hearing her reminder, agreed to the Scorpio Bureau chief's proposal, the female reporter couldn't help but open her almond-shaped eyes wide. With a royal family member already captured, if you don't participate in the subsequent events, and he succeeds, it means you contribute nothing to this investigation task. It would just be an attack on the Kralik Kingdom's royal family, lowering the Cleanup Bureau's evaluation of you. "It doesn't matter. Let it drop then." Smiling at the female reporter, Leon walked over to help Phylea, who looked like she was about to vomit, patting her back, while conveying through soul communication. "I have little interest in rising through the ranks in the Bureau, no need for merits, and regular abnormal objects don't mean much to me, so the Bureau's evaluation is essentially irrelevant for me." "But you can't just give it away like that, right?" Defeated by Leon's desireless attitude, the female reporter, pretending to help pat Phylea's back, came closer and gave Leon a stern look. "It seems you do the dirty work and all the benefits go to the Scorpio branch. Doesn't that make you feel uneasy?" "It's not about uneasiness." Leon shook his head slightly, continuing to pat her back, and explained, "This mission was led by the Scorpio branch from the start. We at the Virgin branch were there to assist. Besides, even the Scorpio branch chief was involved, so it's normal for them to get the majority of the credit. And although I'm taking the blame for the unauthorized assault on the royal family, as the task's lead, if something serious happens, he'll bear the primary responsibility, and the risks he takes aren't minor. It's reasonable for him to want more benefits." "Why are you speaking up for him?" Annoyed, the female reporter forcefully patted Phylea's back, almost exasperated by Leon's attitude. His arrangement is clearly bullying with his Zodiac Director position. Why aren't you resisting at all? Leon could only give a helpless smile in response, patting her back harder as he questioned. "You know he's a Zodiac Director. The power gap is obvious, and I can't resist even if I wanted to. Moreover, given the antagonistic relationship between our chief and him, just picking the fruit is already a concession. In a situation where we can't win, it's more beneficial to negotiate concessions instead of bickering over a lost cause." "Pap, you can't just let him bully you for nothing, can you?" "Pap, then what do you suggest? Get into a fight over some credit?" "Pap, if not a fight, at least let him know." "Oh no, why's the girl vomiting?" I shouldn't have switched with Andre. If I hadn't, he'd be the one getting caught and beaten." Under the fervent concern of Leon and the female reporter, after vomiting all over the place and having her back slapped painfully, the green-eyed girl raised her head with tears in her eyes. "Stop! Stop hitting me. I'm much better now." That's good then." Leon, coming to his senses, realized he might have involved this unlucky kid while arguing with the female reporter. He smiled at her awkwardly and then reassured her softly. "For the time being, just stay by my side. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. Liar. It's only been a few minutes, and you've already hurt me several times." Though she lost contact with her main body, through various encounters during her brief interaction with Leon, the just over a month-old Philea made a judgment based purely on intuition without calculations. Being near this man will bring misfortune. Actually, keeping me around is very dangerous. Having lost the supercomputing power of her main body, Philea could only use her human brain to awkwardly attempt self-rescue. With a pitiful face, she pleaded, "The chip in my brain can be directly detected when I'm within a certain range, so you should just let me go. I promise not to hold today's events against you. If it really doesn't work, hiding me in a safer place will do. Don't worry, I have a way to solve this." He smiled at her, then called the female reporter to help, and said softly, "First, lie down in this sister's arms, and I will use an abnormal object to take the chip out of you, so you won't be detected." Doomed. I'm really out of excuses now. After hearing Leon's words and having no cards left to play with her external brain offline, Philea sank into utter despair. Under Leon's urging, she grudgingly buried her head in the female reporter's chest, pouting as she secretly seethed inside. "Just wait. Once I reconnect with my main body, I'll make a machine that can hit your neck 1,000 times an hour, place you under it, and beat you back 1,000 times as much as you've hurt me, and then make a machine to smack your back hard. Hold tight." Unaware someone was already planning this for his neck, Leon retrieved the silver dagger of cutting from the mirror world and instructed, "Be careful not to move. I'm going to start cutting." Huh? What does cutting mean? Upon hearing Leon's words, Philea's mind went blank. She instinctively looked back and was shocked to see Leon holding a glittering knife, aiming it at the back of her head. "Ah!" Inadvertently, she cried out in alarm. The wide-eyed, terrified green-eyed girl frantically struggled, screaming, "You said you'd use an abnormal object. Why are you using a knife?" "This knife is my abnormal object." He reached out to hold her neck, stopping her movements, and comforted softly. "Don't worry. This knife definitely should not hurt much. Maybe it hurts a bit, but the knife can cut things alive, so you definitely won't die. I'm pretty confident about that. So you're still going to cut my head open? Bastard. Who just said they wouldn't hurt me? Was it a dog? No. I don't want my head cut. Don't move. Even if it hurts a bit. This is saving you. Just endure it a little." "Well, forget it, you better hold her still." Since it was his first time using this silver dagger of cutting on someone's head, and considering the brain is a delicate item, and Philea was struggling too violently, Leon released his grip, handing her neck over to the female reporter. Once the female reporter's hand, as strong as iron, was in place, Leon parted Philea's hair in terror from her expression. Moving the braids with duck hairpins to either side, he gently pressed the icy tip of the silver dagger of cutting to her nape. No, don't. Ah! What did you say?" Looking at the captain of the guard in front of him, who was full of shame, Andre, who typically didn't show many expressions, widened his eyes for once, quickly standing up from his reclining chair. "Ah! My sister has been kidnapped? Even the chip has stopped responding. I'm sorry, Prince Andre." The kneeling captain of the guard lowered his head, remorseful. "We followed Princess Philea's orders, keeping some distance to avoid disturbing her. At first, everything was fine, and those responsible for the security setup didn't notice anything unusual. But then, out of nowhere, that Prince Leon went mad and started hitting Princess Philea. At this point, recalling the tearful green-eyed girl who was beaten, The captain of the guard gritted his teeth and furiously added, "That damned guy seems to be an abnormal object holder." When we rushed up, a bunch of vines sprouted under our feet, tripping us. Then those two from the cleanup bureau also got caught. We couldn't do anything. The Gemini branch people were also captured? Hearing this, Prince Andrei frowned, then coldly asked, "And then? Where did they take Philea?" "Still investigating." The captain of the guard confessed shamefully. "I don't know what abnormal object they used, but they just wiped their collar with it, and the entire person was pulled away. We couldn't understand how they left." "Forget it. It's not your fault." After closing his eyes briefly, calming his emotions, and restoring his serene expression, Andrei said indifferently, "This kidnapping was likely premeditated. The other side had the cover of a prince's identity, so it makes sense you couldn't have predicted it. Moreover, both of them are holders of abnormal objects, and from being able to capture cleanup bureau people alive, they seem quite strong. Ordinary people like you wouldn't have been able to stop them. I'm ashamed." "All right, continue investigating." After waving dismissively to indicate for the guard captain to leave, Prince Andrei, not looking too pleased, had his room door closed and sat quietly on the balcony for a while. After a short moment, a soft laugh unexpectedly echoed in the room where only he was present. Who would have thought he actually captured Adafai? Peering through the glass doors of the balcony toward the embassy, the reclining Prince Andrei closed his eyes again. His body appeared bonelessly relaxed and limp in the chair, the tip of his right index finger tapping lightly on the armrest. Tap, tap, tap. Recalling yesterday when I went to the spaceport to meet the guests, that man named Leon and the peculiar look he had, it felt both like a thief seeing gold coins and a beast finding prey, leaving an unsettling feeling in my gut. That's why I changed my mind, not dutifully fulfilling the reception job and returned early. Seeing now that he kidnapped Adafai, I was truly right to have hastily retreated. However, although I managed to escape unscathed by intuition and avoid being abducted by that Leon, Adafai 01's core consciousness was captured, which is indeed troublesome. After pondering for a while in the recliner, Prince Andrei stood up again, walked to the bookshelf on his left, and retrieved a metal piece connected with a copper wire from a secret compartment, attaching it to the back of his head. Prince Andrei. At the moment the metal piece was close to the back of the head. An urgent voice sounded beside Prince Andrei's ear. "How's your investigation? Have you figured out the reason for Adafai 01's abnormal computation? Has the anomaly been eliminated?" "Don't call her Adafai 01. She has a name. You should address her as Princess Philea." After correcting the man's way of addressing, Prince Andrei replied leisurely, "The reason for the abnormal computation is still unclear, but the anomaly has been eliminated. You at the number 1 scientific department can lift the lockdown now. There's no need to worry about Philea remotely calling Adafai 01 for excess computation." "That's good to hear." Upon hearing Prince Andrei's notification, the voice coming through the metal piece breathed a sigh of relief, then immediately asked, "Prince Andrei, Princess Philea has been separated from Adafai 01 for nearly 2 months. When do you plan to extract her from that human body and let her return to Adafai 01? "Let's discuss it later." Prince Andrei blinked upon hearing this and said somewhat helplessly, "I would love to send her back right away, but unfortunately, Philea was abducted today, and even the information piece in the back of her head was somehow removed. I can't locate her now." "What? The body storing Adafai 01's core program was actually kidnapped?" After hearing Prince Andrei's words, a heavy gasp sounded from the other end of the metal piece. After a few seconds of awkward silence, the person in charge of the number 1 scientific department spoke up, clearly irritated. "Prince Andrei, do you know what you're saying? This isn't something to joke about. Do I seem like someone who jokes around?" Dragging his recliner beside the bookshelf and lying down again, Prince Andrei narrowed his eyes contently, explaining lazily, "A few delegations visited these 2 days, and my mother arranged for me to receive them. Philea became interested in one of the delegation members, and after persisting for quite a while, she took over my hosting duties. However, the members of that delegation were actually two cleaners. When they saw Philea, they suddenly decided to kidnap her without any apparent reason. What can I do in such rare instances? But this could have been prevented. Seemingly angered by Prince Andrei's dismissive attitude, the person in charge of the No. 1 scientific department breathed heavily before speaking in an accusatory tone. Ever since that body was created, I have repeatedly suggested to you that the core program of Adify 01 is too important and should remain in the No. 1 scientific department. Giving it a body to move around is sufficient, but don't casually take it out. Regarding this matter, you pledged that. You said that with an information piece in the back of her head, carefully selected guards, and cleaners from the cleanup bureau, even if Adify 01 leaves the No. 1 scientific department, there would be no issues. Now, aren't you annoying? Removing the metal piece used for private communication slightly to lessen the noise, Prince Andrei irritably said. I said it was unlikely to have issues. Do you understand the meaning of unlikely? Unlikely means generally, there won't be issues except for special circumstances, got it? A prince who traveled a long way suddenly deciding to kidnap Philea. Such a crazy act can't be computed by Adify 01, so how could I predict it? Also, stop calling her Adify 01. It confuses me. The real Adify 01 is the machine soaking in the lake at your No. 1 scientific department. The one with a body now is my nominal sister, Philea. You should address her as Princess. All right, Prince Andrei. I understand your request. After being thoroughly scolded by Prince Andrei, the voice from the metal piece cooled slightly, and the person in charge quietly said, But if possible, may I ask you a question? Why are you so concerned about how I address Adify 01? Why else? With his legs crossed, Prince Andrei replied impatiently. People are people, machines are machines. It's easier to differentiate this way. You really should learn to distinguish them well. The person in charge of the No. 1 scientific department responded with a sneer, then added sarcastically, I must remind you once more that the real Princess Philea died over a decade ago. The so-called Princess Philea now is just a fleshly creation temporarily used to carry Adify 01's core program. Those actions resembling a living person and those human-like responses aren't real. They're models we've calculated over the years. It is not your deceased sister, just a soulless puppet we created. I understand this better than you. After a brief silence, Prince Andrei sat up straight from the recliner and clutched the metal piece with no expression as he said, To be precise, I killed Philea with my own hands and buried her myself. I'm very aware of these matters, and you don't need to remind me. Well, I can only hope you truly understand. Seemingly unwilling to argue further with Prince Andrei, the head of the No. 1 scientific department sneered before continuing. You should know better than I what the kingdom plans to do next, and the loss of Adify 01's core program is absolutely intolerable. Therefore, regarding your loss of Adify 01 and those speculations you vehemently deny, I will report them truthfully to His Majesty the King. I hope your explanations will satisfy His Majesty when the time comes. Oh! Facing the head of the No. 1 scientific department's threat, Prince Andrei's eyelids drooped slightly, and he replied lazily, Go ahead. Make your complaints as you wish. Humph! After snorting angrily, the head of the No. 1 scientific department directly ended the communication. Prince Andrei sighed, unwillingly got up from the recliner, rummaged through the secret compartment on the bookshelf, and retrieved another metal piece with a lever, attaching it to the back of his head. Shortly, a familiar voice, clearly suppressing anger, sounded again beside Prince Andrei's ear. Your Majesty! The head of the No. 1 scientific department, holding back anger, reported via internal communication piece. Adify 01's core program has been abducted, and Prince Andrei's attitude is ambiguous. I even suspect that this abduction might be related to him. Understood. After adjusting the lever on the metal piece, Prince Andrei tugged at the copper line, retraced a few steps, lay back in his comfortable recliner, and adopted a tone that was slightly aged, responding with authority. You focus on your responsibilities, while I will have a proper discussion with Andre regarding other issues. Okay. Before he even started to complain, His Majesty the King preemptively blocked his attempt, making the head of Research Area 1 choke back his words. He speculated that His Majesty might be dissatisfied with his recent progress, and hurriedly reported, "Right, Your Majesty, the 15 main research projects in Area 1 have been relatively stable in progress lately. However, the 4 projects concerning artificial souls, aging delay, memory transfusion, and mental materialization are still unchanged for now, just like before." I understand. After listening to the report from the head of Research Area 1, Prince Andre nodded from his lounge chair and continued in a stern, authoritative tone. Compared to the other 11 projects, these 4 are indeed more challenging. Not only are they not very related to what you've learned in the past, but the timeline for their commencement has been short too. Only after capturing those cleaners recently did the research slightly get on track. I can understand the lack of progress for now. Phew, it seems I've managed to pass. Just as the head of Research Area 1 was secretly breathing a sigh of relief, the tone of His Majesty the King subtly shifted, tapping the armrest twice forcefully, speaking with notable dissatisfaction. But what about the other studies? Why are they only stable? How much energy have I allocated over the years? How much budget support have I given you? Each time, the answer you give me is that progress is stable, but in the end, why is there none that you can present? Bad luck. Should have known better than to complain, facing the stern questioning of His Majesty the King. The back of the head of Research Area 1 faintly showed signs of sweat, but he could only respond with grit. Well, as you know, Your Majesty, each of the 15 research projects in Area 1 is a grand study. If any achieves substantive results, it will be worthy of an added day of festivity in the calendar of our Kralik Kingdom. For research of this magnitude, it's certainly not feasible to see results in a short time. The time frame generally spans decades and might need several generations to maintain before yielding even minimal results, so while I'm alive, chances are slim that any of these research projects will come to fruition, right? That can't be said for certain. After stealthily wiping sweat from his forehead, the head of Research Area 1 said awkwardly, "Many studies in Research Areas 2 to 18, although not as significant as those in Area 1, share correlations. If those related studies achieve significant breakthroughs, the progress of our area may first also leap forward significantly. Then tell me, how many more steps must you take to have even one project implemented before I die?" Well, the progress of research isn't precise enough to quantify, so it's hard to say, but I estimate many more steps are needed. Fine. Then you keep on taking those steps. After tiring out the head of Research Area 1, Prince Andre felt relieved and casually crossed his legs, speaking leisurely. "Research can wait. Tell me, how are the preparations Andre ordered you to make?" "Everything's ready." Seeing that His Majesty eventually stopped hounding about research progress and asked something he could confidently answer, the head of Research Area 1 immediately let out a long breath and eagerly replied, "When those people from the Kingdom of Orlison arrived on the second day, we had already replaced the spray system's chemicals in the city, swapping the original insecticide and nutrient agent with adrenaline counteragents soaked in the blood flesh of gods. The 2 cleaners who hijacked Adify 01 arrived later, and the effects aren't sure yet, but the cleaners from the Kingdom of Orlison, having been sprayed for over a week, already can't raise their reflex speed to inhuman levels. Moreover, in all 864 districts of both levels of the kingdom, we've placed standstones extracted from abnormal objects, corresponding to each location. If attacked, the power will be directly dispersed across all districts, ensuring no significant destruction occurs. This task is indeed done well. After hearing the report from the head of Research Area 1, Prince Andre nodded with satisfaction and lazily spoke with authority. "Go focus on your research, aim to present at least 1 or 2 results before I die. If you can accomplish that, everything will be negotiable." "Good. Okay. under the threat from His Majesty the King to either deliver results or come along. The neck of the head of Research Area 1 felt chilly, and he agreed meekly, not daring to speak further. After the whole area grew silent, Prince Andre on the lounge chair released his hand, and the metal piece hanging at the end of the copper wire shot back swiftly into the hidden compartment on the other side of the bookshelf. That person really is somewhat capable, yet increasingly irritating. Glancing at the hidden compartment on the bookshelf, ensuring it was completely shut and wouldn't be discovered, Prince Andre could not help but sigh, then laid his legs on the footrest and leaned back in contemplation. The hardest part of dealing with cleaners isn't their bizarre abilities. After all, apart from a few who can destroy a city in a short time, most cleaners' destructive power is merely moderate. Moreover, with the Kralik Kingdom's far superior technological level compared to other countries, it wouldn't be much harder to destroy a city if one were to deploy the products from the military-industrial sectors. Facing a confrontation with a Zodiac branch director, we might not necessarily lose. The problem, however, lies with those Zodiac branch-level cleaners mastering such destructive power individually, being way more flexible than a corp of mobilized hot weapons. Coupled with those bizarre abnormal objects, if they desire to infiltrate and perform some actions, it's true that you wouldn't even know where to block them. After all, you can't just aim the guns at the entire Kralik Kingdom and just cleanse it, right? So either simply leave them alone and pretend they don't exist, or deliver an all-out strike when the time comes, ensuring a decisive attack when action is unavoidable. As for whether action is necessary now, after frowning and pondering for a while, Prince Andre stood up and walked to the balcony, searched the shelf beside him twice, and found a black owl mask covered in dust, pressing it forcefully onto his face. Phew! A smoky haze spread across, revealing the familiar bone-long table in the fog-covered strange space. But it was different from before. The positions around the table were mostly empty, with only two silhouettes drawn in. "Are you Black Owl?" Identifying the mask on the opposite side, the hooded figure behind Prince Andre lifted his head, revealing a masked snake face. "What's up? Did you come across something suddenly? I need reinforcements." After succinctly stating his request, Andre, behind the Black Owl mask, said, "Xue Xiao has been captured by the Cleanup Bureau, and now is the time to act. My arrangements might not work against the Zodiac director, so I hope you can provide support to help me kill the Scorpio branch's director. Since there is no more intelligence to share, let's part ways for now." When Prince Andre put on his mask and began seeking support from the Slaughter King Association, the director of Scorpio, who was his target, nodded amiably at Leon and then extended his right hand to the stern-faced female reporter. "In the next few days, I'd appreciate it if Miss Nicole could accompany me and assist our Scorpio branch in continuing the investigation." After hearing the words of the Scorpio director, the female reporter, who was full of frustration, pursed her lips. Although she stepped away from Leon's side and stood next to the Scorpio director, she ignored his extended hand. The Scorpio director, who was left hanging, did not get angry. He shrugged it off with a smile, and then, with a kind look, said to Leon, "Leon Alger is one of the elites of our Scorpio branch. In terms of strength, he might be slightly inferior to your Virgin branch's executioner Emma, but among all the level 1 cleaners in the Bureau, he is quite reputable. I believe with his strength, he should be able to protect you and Princess Philea. Also, if you wish to do anything, you might as well discuss it with him. His abilities might be of help to you." "Help me? I fear he'll be monitoring me more than helping." Understanding the Scorpio director's barely concealed intentions, Leon smiled, already knowing their plan, and extended his hand to the tall, slightly uneasy man standing before him, as if unaware of anything. "I shall trouble you, Sir Alger." "No trouble at all. Nothing to worry about." After a somewhat awkward smile, under the constant hints from the Scorpio director, the clearly reluctant tall man had no choice but to muster up his courage and shake Leon's extended right hand. "Name: Skin Thread. Degeneration. Threads. Seizure. Appearance: a complete set of normal male human skin, composed of countless decomposable threads. The male is approximately 190 centimeters in height and weighs around 230 pounds. seemingly has a long-standing habit of exercising, with smooth and strong muscle lines. Ability: Demon Disguise, Thread Skin, Skin Seizure. Cost: requires peeling off one's own original skin and completely replacing it with the skin thread to use it effortlessly. File: one of the works of the great demon Dissolver Angalophus, forming a set with similar abnormal objects like blood flesh threads, bone threads, nerve threads, organ threads, displayed in Angalophus' bedroom, often appreciated. However, during a joint operation by the Scorpio branch and the Aquarius branch, the Dissolver Angalophus was captured and killed. This piece of artwork he was particularly fond of was partially neutralized and stored in the Scorpio branch's warehouse. Years later, Alger Bentley, a level 2 cleaner from the Scorpio branch, damaged severely in muscles, skin, and bones in a sacrificial capture by a prehistoric race and unable to restore them, applied for this abnormal object and has used it till now. Evaluation: not outstanding in destructive power, but quite practical for an abnormal object, possibly delivering surprising effects if its thread strength is temporarily enhanced with body-strengthening abnormal objects. Contamination value: 5. Turned entirely into threads? So this is what a thread man is. And it's an abnormal object marked with a degeneration tag? Seems like my devil's badge will be useful once again. After reading the detailed information about the skin thread, Leon's eyes flashed with a look of understanding, and without saying anything more, the tall man who shook his hand felt a slight stiffness throughout his body, as if all the threads composing his body were about to escape him. Is this the true weight of the former demon scholar and now food god of the cleanup bureau? Feeling the eerie premonition of his flesh seemingly being temporarily suspended, the threadman Alger couldn't help but shudder. Then he obediently positioned himself beside Leon, observing the proprieties. Even after a little thought, he took a step back, leaving a space behind Leon, feeling slightly better. "What are you doing, Alger?" Seeing Alger, who crossed his hands in front of his lower abdomen, unconsciously slouched his back, despite his over 1.9-meter height, resembling a meek little wife, the corners of the Scorpio director's mouth twitched twice, suddenly having a strange premonition of having entrusted the task to the wrong person. Although he's relatively strong among the level 1 cleaners, just a step behind elites like Executioner Emma and Dice King Tom, Alger truly lacks courage. Making him responsible for monitoring Leon seems not the best choice. It's just, the others seem even less reliable, don't they? After glancing at the few others beside him, the Scorpio director couldn't help but inwardly sigh, regretting not bringing more people along. For this investigation mission, he had only dispatched 4 cleaners: Threadman Alger, Flower Fairy Reuben, Old Fisherman Frankie, and Smooth Path Ahead Mona. Among them, Mona's abilities are supportive, and only with her help could they navigate freely through the all-metal and concrete city without destroying walls, so it's naturally impossible for her to monitor Leon. Reuben and Frankie's abilities are not bad, but he'll still need them in the upcoming investigation, so only Alger could be sent for the task. Now he just hopes Alger can be brave for once, making sure to step in and stop Leon if he tries to stir up trouble. Perhaps I'm overthinking. After all, Leon has been kicked out of this mission. He shouldn't have an opportunity to cause any commotion, right? After a glance at Leon, who was smiling at him, the Scorpio director, who had been smiling all along, suddenly felt a chill, unable to smile anymore, beginning to second-guess whether he had made the wrong decision. But then I shall take my leave. Unaware of the Scorpio director's inner hesitation, Leon signaled to the female reporter to avoid sulking, prioritizing task completion, and bid farewell to the Scorpio director with a nod. "I need to return to the embassy to pick up the people left there, so I won't stay any longer. I wish you all the best for your investigation." Thank you. I hope everything goes well on your side too." Feeling inexplicably uneasy, though unable to pinpoint the issue, the Scorpio director could only nod to Leon, watching him and Alger depart. And once Leon and Alger were at a distance, the still stern-faced female reporter asked, "Lord Edward, how do you plan to continue the investigation? As for the next step, let's check out the Gemini branch first." After glancing at the restricted fishing net, containing 2 bundled Gemini branch cleaners, the Scorpio director suppressed his internal doubts for the time being, spoke with ardent eyes. Since royal family members have already been seized, our presence can't be concealed. And at this time, the most important thing to do is to first neutralize the opposition's ability to resist. No matter what happens to the Kralik royal family, controlling those Gemini branch cleaners can't be wrong. Senior Alger. Leon gently stroked the small flower in his pocket to confirm Princess Philea's condition was normal. He then extended the effect of the secret tale to include the burly man behind him and curiously asked, "Is this your original appearance?" "No." Upon hearing Leon's inquiry, the tall and burly Alger shook his head and cautiously replied, "I originally was only about 1.6 meters tall with a slender and small build, completely different from now. But during a mission later on, I suffered severe body damage, so I had to apply for the Demon 9 threads and almost replaced my entire body, which made me look like this." "I see." Leon had actually already learned some of this information from the skin threads description. He brought it up just to find a topic. Seeing Alger pick up the conversation, he smiled and continued, "Senior Alger, you seem to be somewhat wary of me." Relax. I'm not really a particularly crazy person. You don't actually have to be so guarded against me." Leon shook his head somewhat helplessly and explained, "Regarding the matter of me eating the 3-headed canine deity, it's really not as exaggerated as the rumors. At the time, both Nicole and I were swallowed by it, almost dying inside its stomach, with our souls mostly digested. Nicole's soul was much stronger than mine, so she was mostly fine. But with the strength of my soul back then, even if I safely returned to this world, I wouldn't have been able to control my body and would have had to lie in bed for years. Furthermore, the part of my soul I lost was inside the canine deity's body. My soul was yearning to be complete again, so I had no choice but to eat it. I was forced to." "Oh, I see. And the same goes for the Dream Realm incident. I had reasons for my actions." Seeing Alger still maintaining a respectful distance, Leon tried to build rapport by explaining his past encounters and the reason for his anger at the King of Nightmares, then sincerely said, "Senior Alger, both you and Director Edward have some misunderstandings about me. Those incidents about killing True God or destroying the Dream Realm were all special cases. Normally, I am quite a stable person and don't usually act impulsively. Indeed, he does seem quite mild-mannered and gets along well with others." After hearing Leon's explanation, Alger found him not to be as maniacal as the rumors suggested, and his tight expression finally relaxed a bit. But the strange feeling of possibly being controlled lingered in his mind, leading him to cautiously voice his doubts after some hesitation. So he noticed this. While walking towards the embassy, Leon slightly raised his brow upon hearing this. Noticing the skin thread was labeled Fallen, and within the I am the demon's command range, even before they let go of hands, he switched out this devil's badge. After all, the Demon 9 threads was quite special. Besides being an abnormal object, it was also Alger's body. Testing its susceptibility to I am the demon's control was necessary for peace of mind. Though Leon didn't give any command at that instant, the I am the demon in the slot flickered for a moment, proving that any body with the Fallen label would be influenced by it. Presumably, this brief control effect, possibly sensed by Alger, was due to the badge flashing briefly. Rest assured, this is also a misunderstanding. Looking at Alger, whose expression still held caution with a low favorability towards the Scorpio branch, Leon decisively lied to win him over as an ally. "You know, I was called the Demon Scholar, holding several demon abnormal objects, and had high compatibility with such demon-type abnormal objects, which might have led to your misunderstanding." Also a misunderstanding. Vaguely feeling something was still not right, but unable to pinpoint the issue, Alger nodded and temporarily accepted the explanation. After resolving the misunderstanding between them, he seemed more natural, though still subconsciously lagging half a step behind Leon. He at least started to engage in normal conversation. "Leon, sir." Originally wanting to call Leon directly but instinctively adding a courtesy after, walking down the street with the sun behind him, his shadow covering Leon entirely. The burly man found himself nervously rubbing his clothes before cautiously asking, "What are you planning to do next?" "It's simple. First, return to the embassy area, bring out the two people left there, and then find the foreign minister." After contemplating for a brief moment, Leon smiled and explained, "Previously, when meeting Kralik Kingdom's foreign minister, I proposed buying long-distance communication technology, supposedly invented by a scholar in Kralik Kingdom's #1 research zone. I estimate last night the foreign minister probably finished gathering enough technical data so we can go now and bind him, then take the collated technology and inventor information, leading us to the #1 research zone, and eventually locate Adify 01. What's wrong? Is there a problem? You dare to ask if there's a problem?" Looking at Leon turning back with a bewildered face, Alger's cheek twitched slightly. "But you're supposed to have withdrawn from the mission? Why are you still investigating Adify 01? And didn't you just say you're a stable person? How can you casually talk about kidnapping a national minister? Where does that exactly seem stable? So practically, why is he so straightforward? Could it be I'm overreacting?" Exchanging glances with the visibly surprised Leon and recalling this junior's terrifying track record, Alger hurriedly found kidnapping a foreign minister increasingly palatable. Never mind the rest. He even kidnapped Kralik Kingdom's princess, who's now in his pocket. So taking a minister during a task investigation doesn't quite seem like a big deal, does it? "It's nothing." Swallowing back a light-hearted remark, the lines he'd never intended to cross swiftly retreated. Alger shook his head, hesitated slightly, and then cautiously inquired, "Mr. Leon, if you do locate the #1 research zone through that scholar's movements, would you mind me informing Director Edward?" "Of course, I don't mind." Leon smiled gently at those words and warmly replied, "In fact, by telling you this, I'm intending for you to do just that. Earlier on, I didn't inform Director Edward mainly due to the uncertainty of this approach, planning to update him once it proved viable. Yes, please do inform him when the time comes." Ah well, unexpectedly finding the notorious Leon, eating true god demon, to be a remarkably generous person, not only disregarding their director's attempts to sideline him but even prepared to share hard-earned intelligence, Alger felt a wave of shame washing over him. Truthfully, compared to Mr. Leon in front of him, the petty gestures of their own director hardly measured up. While the director schemed about taking credit and excluding people, Leon had been diligently striving to fulfill his investigative task, never once begrudging our director. "Honestly, Director, you've been utterly eclipsed. Wait for me a moment." Just as Alger started to reflect and thought that his bureau chief was being a bit too much, Leon found a machine for directions by the roadside, stood beside it, and shortly after, a hurried citizen approached and reached for his pants pocket. "This one will do." Glancing at the citizen's pants pocket and seeing a bulge similar to the size of an identity card, Leon immediately stepped forward, took out the silver dagger of cutting, and made a small incision at the bottom of the pocket. Right after, before the citizen could reach for his identity card, Leon slipped his little finger inside, gently nudging the card out. He then swiped his hand over the incision, seamlessly repairing the tear to its original flawless state. Ha! Unable to see Leon, who was concealed by the secret tail, the seemingly urgent citizen reached into his pocket, only to find his identity card missing, and instantly his expression turned anxious. He instinctively looked back at the path he came from, but there was no sign of his identity card. "This is bad, why now of all times?" As the hurried citizen stomped his foot in frustration and turned to go back and look for his identity card, a hand suddenly patted him on the shoulder. "Excuse me, sir." In the surprised gaze of the citizen, Leon, who had already finished checking the route, smiled as he returned the identity card he had just borrowed. "You dropped something." "Ah, thank you. Thank you." After expressing thanks twice, the citizen excitedly took back his identity card and exclaimed, "If it weren't for you, I would have been delayed. I'm really grateful." "No need. Just lending a helping hand." Nodding at the hurried citizen, Leon walked over to Alger, who was waiting nearby, and began to speak. I've just checked. To return to the embassy, we need to first pass through research areas 8 and 9, reach living area 17, wait 10 minutes for some upper and lower city blocks to swap places, then enter the lower area and turn right 1 street, and we'll arrive at administrative area 3, where the embassy is located. Ah, okay. Somewhat surprised, Alger, who stood nearly 2 meters tall, nodded and followed Leon. They dodged the fare onto a tram heading to the 8th research area. Curious, he couldn't help but ask, Mr. Leon, this ability that makes people ignore you, does it come from some great demon? Yes, this thing is called the Secret Tail. Its function is to erase traces and reduce presence. When facing targets with a noticeably lower contamination value, it can even make it so the other party can't perceive you at all. After briefly explaining the function of the Secret Tail, Leon asked with a slight surprise, Alger Sr., how did you know it came from some great demon? Because it feels kind of similar. After recalling a bit, Alger unsurely replied, over in the Kingdom of Orlison, there's a very annoying organization called the Sect of Fertility. They worship everything related, often holding rather dissolute gatherings. And among the so-called sacred relics they worship, there's a thing belonging to a great demon, soaked in a jar, which has a similar aura to your abnormal object. Although not entirely sure, it seems they're related. That thing from the great demon, could it be the one black goat blew up years ago? Unexpectedly learning the whereabouts of one of the goat relics from Alger, Leon's brows raised slightly, preparing to ask some questions. However, just then, a sheep's head suddenly popped out from Leon's cuff and yelled with a look of surprise, That's mine. That must be my whip. Leon, you need to help me get it back. Calm down. Stuffing the sheep's head back into his sleeve, Leon smiled apologetically at Alger and then, with interest, asked, Alger Sr., just like it said, that thing is indeed part of a set with my abnormal object. What happened to it in the end? It was purified. Ah! The Sect of Fertility made too much noise and was exterminated by our Scorpio branch last month. Their so-called sacred relics were seized by our bureau. After explaining the outcome of the Sect of Fertility, Alger recalled slightly and then, with a somewhat peculiar expression, added, We also have a level 1 cleaner in our bureau, nicknamed the Purifier, and she took all those sacred relics and purified them one by one. Although the objects weren't destroyed, their abilities completely changed. If I remember correctly, she modified the items to be used for purifying desire. Just by wielding them and hitting a person's head, all of their desires would vanish, leaving their mind pure for an entire day. And the Sect of Fertility made quite a fuss at the time, with many victims. Before I and the bureau chief left the Kingdom of Orlison, she was still using that item to heal the worshippers harmed by the Sect of Fertility, and I reckon she'll be done in 2 months. Ah! How dare she! Upon hearing the fate of its brother, the sheep's head that Leon had just tucked away instantly popped out again, roaring in fury. That was my whip. Damn woman. I'll kill her. Get back in there. Stuffing the black goat back in again and instructing the kids to keep it in check, Leon spoke with some exasperation. Well, Alger Sr., if possible after this mission, I hope you can introduce me to her. If that purifier is willing, I can trade other abnormal objects with her to get that item back. Okay. Smiling somewhat awkwardly, Alger agreed, then curiously asked, So that sheep's head was the true body where that great demon's soul resides? Sort of, but technically only 1/7. This set of abnormal objects is quite unique. Each has its own independent soul, and even their personalities aren't entirely the same. After briefly explaining the situation with the black goat, Leon glanced at the flashing sign above, then reminded, Alger Sr., we've reached the 17th living area. We should get off. Ah, all right. At Leon's reminder, the curious Alger quickly stood up. Following Leon off the tram, the two found a bench by the roadside to sit and prepared to wait for the completion of the upper and lower layer swaps in Kralik Kingdom, so they could proceed to the embassy district to pick someone up. However, at that moment, the flower in Leon's pocket suddenly trembled slightly, directly spitting out the unconscious Princess Phylea, quickly withering and shriveling, and within 2 breaths, completely withered away. Soon after, the secret tail held by Leon slowly transmitted a thought. Nicole's supply is cut off. Before it stopped, she asked me to tell you, run, quickly run. After hearing the notification from the secret tail, Leon's pupils abruptly contracted. Something happened to Nicole? It's been less than 2 hours since we separated. This is... Seeing Princess Phylea suddenly appear on the ground, Alger was first bewildered, then immediately stood up from his chair. Ruben's ability failed? Something happened to the director. Hold on. Signaling Alger to wait, Leon tightly clutched the only thing that might know the situation, the secret tail, and hurriedly asked, "What's going on with Nicole? Where's Scorpio Director? Were they ambushed?" "Not sure," the secret tail replied. "About 2 seconds before I called you." Nicole's emotions fluctuated slightly. Then she shouted for me to tell you to run quickly, and that was it. 2 seconds. Upon hearing this, Leon's heart trembled. From noticing something wrong to breaking the connection. It only took 2 seconds? How could it be so fast? Nicole's side had a Zodiac Director, a level 1 cleaner, and 3 veteran level 2 cleaners. Even if they were besieged by 3 to 5 true gods, they should be able to hold out for a while, right? How could there be no movement in just 2 seconds? Oh, there's more news. While Leon was in doubt, the secret tail spoke again. Nicole told me to inform you that they were ambushed at the Gemini branch office and were hit by a heavy artillery barrage just after passing through the block partition wall. For some reason, apart from her, no one else responded, and they were directly hit by the heavy artillery. Half a block. Boom! Seemingly to prove the secret tail's words, an incredibly violent explosion sound came from afar, making the upper half of Kralik Kingdom's block tremble slightly. All got blown away. After finishing the latter half of the sentence, the secret tail, which never spoke unless necessary, took a small breather before speaking again. Nicole said the other 3 cleaners died instantly, and Scorpio Director's body was mostly destroyed. Then his soul was sealed in the half-destroyed body by a serpent eye that appeared in the sky. Although Scorpio Director and she are still resisting, they're doomed to lose. Nicole advised you not to worry about her and to escape Kralik Kingdom with Princess Phylea immediately, trying to contact the cleanup bureau for assistance. Understood. Leon, with a troubled expression, nodded, and before the connection was severed, he decisively said, "Tell Nicole to immediately shout, 'Aquarius Director is my dad. You cannot touch me.' Then completely remain silent. Never speak another word, unless we speak first. Otherwise, pretend the connection doesn't exist." "Okay." Once the secret tail responded and went to relay the message to the female reporter. Leon quickly explained the situation to Alger and said with a tight frown, "That's the situation. Do you have any way to remotely contact the cleanup bureau?" "No." Upon hearing that 3 level 2 cleaners were already dead, Alger's eyes dimmed slightly, and he shook his head. To ensure that no matter what happens, the message can be transmitted back to the cleanup bureau, the celestial globe mirror capable of remote communication has always been carried by the director, but this time it was Scorpio Director who had an accident, and with his body half destroyed, he might not have the chance to use the celestial globe mirror. Leon sighed after hearing this but said nothing further. He put the unconscious Phylea back on the chair, frowning in thought, while Alger could not resist speaking after waiting a while. "Leon, didn't they say for us to run quickly? So now?" "No." Shaking his head slightly, Leon flatly rejected. "We can't run now, we must stay." "But even the director got ambushed." Seeing Leon heated up at this time, unwilling to abandon his companion to escape alone, Alger admired his courage but couldn't help feeling slightly annoyed. "The director and his strong team failed. What can we do with just the 2 of us? The most important thing for us now is to take this damned princess and quickly leave Kralik Kingdom, to avoid the mission's complete failure, and immediately seek help from the headquarters. Can't retreat. If we retreat now, We're definitely dead. After glancing up at Alger, Leon asked, "Let me ask you, what the Cleanup Bureau values the most is keeping this royal family member safe and ensuring Kralik Kingdom's bloodline doesn't extinguish. What does the opposition value the most?" That would be… wrong. At this point, Alger's expression suddenly froze, and his back was covered with sweat. The Cleanup Bureau wants to protect this princess, so the opposition naturally wants to kill her, completely severing Kralik Kingdom's royal lineage, thus diminishing the Watcher's Palace's effectiveness. And that means Phylea Princess in our hands is the top priority target, and someone has been monitoring all exit routes from Kralik Kingdom ever since the princess got kidnapped. If we leave immediately, the likelihood of getting caught couldn't be higher. Alger, on the way here, I observed the terrain around Kralik Kingdom from the Skyclipper's porthole. Besides a large seaport to the west, the remaining 3 sides are all plains. Recalling briefly, Leon said sternly, "My ability only confuses perception within a medium range to ensure I won't be discovered, but things like watchtowers or long-range observations can still spot us. In this situation, it's almost impossible for us to escape with her. But if we continue to stay in Kralik Kingdom, it's like we're a drop of water lost in the ocean, and they won't find us. But if we don't leave, how do we notify the Cleanup Bureau? That's something to think about afterward." Shaking his head slightly, Leon reattached the secret tail to Phylea's back, handed her to Alger, and solemnly advised, "At this time, firstly ensure you don't get caught, because only when we're alive do we have a chance to notify the Cleanup Bureau. For now, let's hope they might think Phylea Princess died in the ambush and gradually relax their monitoring outside the kingdom. You watch her for me. I'll be right back." "Ah? Where are you going?" Realm of the Dead. Sitting cross-legged on the chair, Leon closed his eyes and said, "After consuming the 3-headed canine deity, I've temporarily inherited a small part of its power, allowing me to freely enter and exit the realm of the dead. Its so-called guarding death power is essentially the gate of the deceased's gatekeeper, doorman, with the authority to drive back those trying to escape the realm of the dead or block those unworthy of entering. This is just the right time to use it,